Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees for Monday, July 23rd, 2018. Could we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please, Phyllis.
Mayor Clint Folsom.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Trustees Rita Dozell.
Here.
Sandy Hammerly.
Here.
Chris Sampson.
Here.
Mark Lasis.
Here.
Kevin Ryan.
Here.
Town Manager Matt Magley. Town Attorney Kendra Carberry.
Here.
Town Clerk Phyllis Sargent here.
Thanks. Next is the approval of our agenda. Are there any board members who'd like to make changes to the agenda, pull any items? All right,
I'll make a motion.
Seeing none, take a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Okay. A motion by Trustee Lasis, second by Mayor Pro Tem Pennington. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you. All right, next is reports, questions, and issues. Who'd like to start?
Picked on. Evening. A couple things first. We have a lot on our agenda today, so I'd like to. This is a informal policy that we've had that we try to end our meetings somewhere between 10 and 10:30 this evening, and so we'd like to try to enact that. So hopefully, as folks are giving their announcements, if they object to that, if you could just let me know, let us know, maybe let the community know that you object, and then otherwise, if you don't object, Clint, maybe you could just try to steer us towards that, and we can continue things as necessary. Second, just very briefly, we talked about the community, and I've been really lucky to be part of an organization within this community for 8 or 9 years, and that's the Rock Creek Flyers. That's our local swim organization. They concluded with the Boulder Valley Summer Swim League Championship on Saturday, where they took second place. I want to congratulate all the swimmers in taking the second place. Thank you. And but it's about competition, but it's really about that community. I've seen so many kids that I've got to know grow, not just as swimmers, but as leaders of our community, as lifeguards, as volunteers, as students, and so many friendships have been developed. So I just want to take a moment to let you know that for those that have been very patient, as our pool has sometimes been closed on a Saturday morning, and on this past Saturday, unfortunately, we had to close one of the pools because we had so many swimmers that are lifeguards and also members of the Rock Creek Flyers, and so they chose to compete in the championships, and I think that was the right choice for a lot of them, so thank you for the community's patience for that. And those are my only announcements.
Thanks. Read it.
I attended the Historical Commission meeting last Friday, and one of the things that the members of the commission brought up was that on our 4th of July picnic, which was very well attended and wonderful, but when the national anthem was being played, no one really knew that it was happening. And we kind of looked around, and then people started saying, oh, wait a second, the flag's going up on the fire truck, and you couldn't really hear it. So they would just ask, as many of them were veterans, or are veterans, that next year that we make an announcement when we're going to play the national anthem at the 4th of July picnic, so that we can all give respect to the flag and to the anthem. And then a cemetery working group has been established, or is being established, to make improvements to the Superior Cemetery. So we have $50,000 budget to spend to actually improve the look and feel and the ability to visit the cemetery itself. So if anybody here is interested in participating on that working group, just let Matt know or let me know, and then we'll get you connected with when that next meeting is going to be, because it's very interesting. Our cemetery is old, and it has Civil War veterans in it, and it's got some very interesting aspects to it. And as soon as we can, as the downtown Superior develops a little bit more, we'll again provide access, road access to the cemetery, and then the Historical Commission will be able to start having actual events and walks through the cemetery and things like that that we've done in the past. But it's a very unique part of our town and our history. And then also, they're moving forward with putting historical pictures in businesses throughout Superior and offering up different pictures that could be purchased or paid in some way in a contribution to actually put up in Sports Stable or other places. And what the members said, which I think is very important to remember, is that Superior is not a new town. We're actually a very old town with a lot of history, and it's good for us to remember that every now and then, that Rock Creek wasn't the first settlement here, that there has been a lot of other people here before that. Okay, and then and they're also going to be working on coming up with a name for the trailhead over here along McCaslin, what typically has been referred to as a Shan property. So, be thinking about that, or if you have an idea of what you might think would be a really good name to name the trailhead that we will be putting there at the top here of McCaslin, right there where we own, the town owns that land now along with Boulder County Conservatory, then we'll be coming up with a name, or the Historical Commission will, for that trailhead. And not just a street name or something. We'd like to have something that's interesting and means something to the town. And then I'd like to, my last comments are, I'd like to remember a neighbor of mine that died last week, Calouste Christianian. And he may not be known to all of you as his name, but he was the owner of Mike's Camera. And everybody knows Mike's Camera. So the Christianian family have lived in Superior for a great many years. And I'm sad to say that he died. He had a long, wonderful life. And as it says here in his obituary, which is in the Sunday Denver Post, Calouste was a loving, loyal, and thoughtful husband, father, and grandfather, and a great neighbor. So I just like us all to remember Calouste and Arus and the entire family in our thoughts and our prayers today, because he was a wonderful man, had a wonderful life, and a lot of history with from Armenia he was. And so if you could find out a little bit more about him, it would be a great thing to do and a way to remember a great citizen of this country, and also a great resident and neighbor that we had here, Calouste Christianian. Rest in peace, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you. I attended both community engagement meetings last week for the proposed community/rec center, and just want to congratulate the staff on a job well done. Having plenty of staff here, our advisory committee, ProStack here, I believe some OSAC members were here, and just providing the information that the residents were seeking. And we can't do these types of meetings enough to make sure that we get the right information out there, answer all the questions. There was a lot of residents, different residents at both meetings. A lot of residents don't approve of the rec center. There's a lot of residents that do approve of the rec center, and there was a lot of residents that just didn't know. They just weren't sure. And that is the reason that we hold these meetings, to make sure that we get the facts out there and that we can do this properly. And then decide at the end of the year if this is something that we want to move forward with. But anyway, thank you to staff for doing a nice job, and ProStack too. Thank you. That's it.
All right, Sandy.
The only meeting I attended was last Tuesday. The Jefferson County is holding a meeting last week and a meeting up in Boulder County tomorrow on the sampling protocol that is part of the FLAP grant submission. And attended that, intend to attend the one tomorrow as well, and read all the documents, et cetera, and weigh in one way or another. Not quite sure yet how. Next Wednesday is Consortium of Cities meeting. It's going to be on homeless issues. And then next Friday is First Fridays. I'm happy to host unless somebody else is dying to do so. So speak up. Sticks, 7:45. That's all.
Okay, thanks. Mark?
I don't have any report tonight, but we've got a packed house tonight, and I imagine we're going to hear a lot during public comment and during the public hearing for the land use application, which I am looking forward to hearing from all of our residents. So thank you all for coming tonight.
Sandy?
I actually had some comments to make, and I have a new piece of technology here, and I lost all my notes. So everybody lucks out tonight. But the one thing I did remember that I wanted to ask was, I've noticed in the last several community engagement meetings that people don't always know who our staff is. The trustees tend to always have their name badges on, but I don't think the staff has name badges. And so I would really like to make sure that whenever we have any kind of a meeting, that our staff is wearing some sort of a name badge that identifies who they are, because all of our residents don't know. I mean, I see Patrick in the back of the room, and I'm not sure that everybody knows who Patrick Hammer is. And so I'd really like to make sure that going forward, our staff is wearing name tags so it's easy for the public to identify them. They know who we are because we're sitting up here with name badges in front of us, but I'd like to make sure that staff has the same name badges that we do, and I'm sure you'll lose them, just like we do. But I know it helps when people are trying to identify our staff, and it helps people get to know them. So that's the only note that I remember. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sandy. That's a good suggestion about the name tags. I think that's a good idea. The meeting I attended last week, Metro Mayors Caucus Executive Committee meeting. I am on the Executive Committee of Metro Mayors. They meet every other month, and the Metro Mayors meets every other month as well. And we were just meeting to set the agenda for the August caucus meeting, which we will have both gubernatorial candidates. So that should be an interesting meeting in August. A couple of upcoming events to put on your calendars. We're having a airport meeting, a Rocky Mountain Airport community meeting here at Town Hall, August 29th, 6:30 p.m. It's considerable interest about airport noise and so on, so if you're interested in that topic, put that on your calendar. We are having additional work sessions, additional board work sessions to discuss the Community Recreation Center on the following Mondays, July 30th, August 6th, August 20th, and 6 to 9 p.m. on those each evening, and those are open to the public, and so welcome to attend those. And we'll also have our budget meetings in September. Those dates have not been set yet, but we're working on that. That's an annual event that we do each year. And all right, so we'll go on to Matt for anything. Kendra?
Nothing for me. Thanks.
Okay. And Phyllis. Okay.
Can I actually come back for one quick
Yes.
thing? I did want to let everybody know that the On the Same Page book for the Louisville Library has been selected. It is a book called Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grand. We are actually we have 10 copies of the book that we will be raffling off in the town of Superior, and you can sign up at either the North Pole right now, and then we'll be putting it at the South Pole. But then in September, we'll actually have a meeting where we all come together and we can discuss the book. But this is an exciting thing we do at the Louisville Library. We all try and read the same book and then come together and discuss it. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew what the title of that book was. Thank you.
Thank you. And I've participated in that for the last 2 years, and so it's a fun event. So hope that's well attended. All right, we're now on to our next segment, which is public comment. I realize that many of you are probably here to comment on our agenda item number 7, which is public hearing on the Anderson property. In order for your comments to be considered as part of the public record, we do ask that you stay until that public hearing is opened, which it may not be until the latter part of the 8 o'clock hour towards the 9 o'clock hour. If you're not into staying here for the next 2 hours, you are welcome to email us. We do consider emails in the public record, and so we do want to hear from everyone. There is a good possibility this is going to get continued for a final vote to the next meeting, so the public hearing will be continued, and so it will still be open, and there will be opportunity for public comment at the next meeting as well before we close the public hearing. So just wanted to give you kind of procedurally how public comment works for agenda items. So public comment can be delivered on consent agenda or non-agenda items. That's for public comment. So with that, we will open public comment. Anyone for public comment? Yes, come on up.
Hello, my name is Dalton Villette. I live at 912 East Carval Place. And I attended the work session that happened just before the town hall, and I wanted just to make some quick notes of it because I want to give way to a lot of other people willing and interested to speak. Right now, I'm not in favor of the current proposal that's being discussed. This is not, again, the Anderson proposal. This is one that would be connecting Proctor Road up by Tract H. And I wanted firstly to share the definition of what a cottage is, because a lot of the discussion was about the single-family dwelling units being cottages. And the official definition of a cottage is a small home, usually of one story. It may carry the connotation of being an old or old-fashioned building. In modern use, a cottage is usually a modern, often cozy dwelling, typically in a rural or semi-rural location. I think when looking at the plans, we can really see that the definition of a cottage does not line with the developer's definition of what a cottage is, be it for the density of the area or be it also for the single family units not being 2 floors as opposed to 1 floor. And I also wanted to note that in previous iterations of lots, transitional units from the currently very urbanized townhomes and condos that are being built in the Superior downtown area, or the downtown Superior area as it's now being known as, don't necessarily transition right into what is now Rock Creek. I believe a lot of the south facing homes should be more in line with what we want in Rock Creek, not just from an aesthetic standpoint, but also from a density and building standpoint as well. I don't think they're conducive for purchasing for millennials or empty nesters. One of the developers' points was discussing how this could be used for a purchase by a millennial without kids. And I can attest, as a millennial without kids, I cannot afford a house like this, and I don't know many other people my age who'd be able to. The estimated value of these homes would be around $750,000, and I don't think that's necessarily geared towards the people that the developers are arguing is the target audience. And lastly, one of the major concerns that I have is the developer closing by saying, we can do this. We can squeeze these many houses together. We can look at changing the roads. We can have these paseos as open space and yardage space available for a lot of the people. But I really believe just because we can do something doesn't necessarily mean that we should do something. So thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right.
Hi, I'm Brad Clayton. I live in on Wiggin Street up here, and I also have a rental property over in Basalt Court. I've been a resident of Superior since 1994. Started out on Coal Creek Circle, 100 yards probably from 36 with all the noise, and transitioned around the town a little bit. I had 4 points. I'm going to try to get through them quickly. Don't want to take time. I think Rock Creek, when we moved here, had won national awards due to planning of the community and how great the community is. And one of the things I think you guys did, 5 years ago, you did a good job of planning. And I think we should sort of stick to that planned community rather than what we see transitioning to. And I'm a business person. I'm involved in several companies, and if I was the developer and I'm profit oriented, I would do this exact thing. I totally get it from a developer standpoint. My wife was a developer. We understand driving profits, driving density to get more profits. It makes sense, but I don't know if that's what our community wants. They commented that there's a market for this, and I agree. I don't know how much of a market there is for this. Is there a desire for this style of housing? Not really in Colorado, but people are being forced to it. They just don't have a choice. And at 750,000 unit, I don't know what the market is. My Basalt Court property, which is a nice single-family 2,200 square foot residence, is maybe worth 600. So if I would like to understand where that 750 comes from, and I believe it just simply comes from people who can't afford to live in Boulder, want to be closer, and there's a market, so people will pay it. Sell more of them, and you're happier. I do think it's a transitional effort because I think these will turn to rentals in the end. I don't think they will stay single-family residences. You see that happening in Boulder. About a third of these type of properties are being purchased and rented. So I worry if that's the community we want, then fine, but it's not really the community I foresee in Rock Creek. I don't think these are the single-family residents are true single-family residents. We see them being stacked. I call them condominiums, but you can call them whatever you want. There's no yards. It's not building a community. I can go on. And just the last point, Kevin, I was a decade-long flyer. I was a place caller. I love the flyers. And I wonder what another 1,400 homes is going to do to the infrastructure of Superior and people who want to join the flyers and try to come to the pools and use our infrastructure. I just think we're building too high of a density. We may not have a choice, so let's make the best of it. Let's try to make a transition from a high density next to 36 that's soundproofed and maybe designed to suppress some of the noise that we get, and transition it more to a traditional Rock Creek property. I try to, manage our community to that end. A little bit between a rock and a hard spot because we have a developer and they have rules, and as long as they follow the rules, there's not much you can do, but I do think you guys have influence on this. So I'd ask that you use that.
Thank you. All right. Additional public comment? Yes.
I'm Sam Benz. I live at 927 East Carville Place in Superior. Lived there for 26 years. I've watched this process and participated as a resident for that time from the original annexation agreement and seen it move from light commercial with parking lots that we worried about the lights to continually progressing higher density. And I understand. I concur with both previous speakers with regard to all of their comments, from density to whether we want this type of a community that probably will lead to rental and short-term residency in our community. During the first annexation, or after the first annexation, when it moved from light commercial to a more residential and intent to support a downtown, I noticed, excuse me, I noticed there was a lot more discussion on trying to match the southern-facing boundary of that property to be more like what's on the northern end of Rock Creek. And right now it looks like there's maybe one property dwelling along the buffer area. So I'm concerned about matching the residential units on the other side of the buffer to the northern side of Rock Creek, Superior, Carville, and Wiggins, and really reducing the density to something that matches more what the town was that I moved here for. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Any additional public comment? All right.
Hello, my name is Joseph Eckes. I'm a resident of Wiggins Street here in Superior. I want to address, the town, you as the town board, and also make some considerations for the developer and those involved in the planning efforts of this Superior Town Center. I think it's important that the developers strive to follow previous agreements in terms of the vision of the plan and aspects of the plan, and that way they don't have to spend time designing something that ends up not being approved. And that's where I'd like to address you as a town board. It's up to you to ensure that previous agreements in terms of the Superior Town Center are followed, and we're counting on you to do that. One thing I want to comment on specifically is the buffer zone that is north of Wiggins Street, south of the town center. The developer originally, I think, infringed on that, is my understanding, by doing some work, and then they had to redo it to go back and have the appropriate buffer zone. And when that was agreed upon, it's my understanding that 25 feet of the existing buffer zone would be now backyards to these cottage-style single-family homes. And what I'm concerned about is anything beyond those, that 25 feet being just a backyard, and if there's a street or an alley in that area, it's a distinct violation of a previous agreement about the buffer zone, which has already been modified. And so I would ask that as the town board, you ensure that what was previously agreed upon is followed. And there's not any roadways or alleyways or any traffic of any kind back there. I grew up in Superior and Rock Creek. I went to Superior Elementary and graduated from Monarch High School. And I hope that decisions made in this aspect of the Superior Town Center and all aspects of it won't degrade the quality experience I had growing up in Superior. And that, you know, in terms of schools and density, as previously mentioned. So yeah, that's all I'd like to say. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you. Additional public comment? One in the back and then.
Hello, my name is Lisa Pauley. I also live on Wiggins Street here in Superior. I've lived in Superior since 1996. And with respect to the development that was discussed earlier this evening, one, I'm happy to see that there's an element that is single-family homes. Very, very happy about that. However, I am very concerned about the density of what has been proposed. In looking at that, the size of those homes, the density, the amount, how close they are together is very concerning. The greatest concern, though, is the fact that they are moving into, as was just mentioned by the prior speaker, that when the 25-foot of the existing buffer zone was relinquished in earlier guidelines or earlier plans, those were supposed to be intended for yards. Now, in the development plan, you could actually see a road that they were having in that 25-foot buffer. So I do not think that that should be allowed. It's against what was earlier agreed to. The one concerning thing is that you attend these meetings, you participate, you think you have an agreement, and then you walk away, and if you're not paying attention constantly, things change that you thought you were putting your reliance on the folks sitting in this room at the table. And so that is very concerning that things can change very quickly. And I agree. The developer's going to do whatever they can do to make money. And they are making this very dense so they can make a lot of money. And I'm not sure this is the community or what is good for us. And also from the infrastructure standpoint, is it really going to, from the traffic, from the infrastructure, have we really thought through all of that and what the impact is going to be? And one other thing that was mentioned earlier in the working committee was, okay, maybe the guidelines that were decided or agreed to back in 2013 are at a time. Let's just set those aside. A lot of hours of board time, community members, time went into those guidelines, and to think that they can just be pushed aside very quickly, I think really needs to be reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional.
Dave Taylor, 725 East Wiggins. I just came from fishing. I apologize. Didn't catch anything. So, But I would like to make a statement, and it's more of a philosophical statement. I think it relates to what Lisa said. We sat through most of the Planning Commission meetings, and we watched all the toing and froing, and we thought we had an agreement. And there were a lot of hard-fought issues there, a lot of battles, and it appears, from my standpoint, that you guys aren't in charge. So what I see is the developers in charge, and that's not what it should be. So gradually things erode, the things that were fought for, and some overturned, and some put back in place. I'd like to ask you guys to revisit your position on all these things and remember who's in charge of the community. So there you go. Thanks.
Thank you.
No one else left, right?
I don't know what the procedure is for this, but I brought a picture.
Do you mind starting with you?
Oh, hi, my name's Marcy Strauss, and I'm at 907 East Carville Place. I don't know what the procedure for this is, but I brought a picture I took last night from my deck. Well, it's not from my deck, it's from my lot, which I'd like to hand out so I can show you how it affects.
If you could just hand it to Phyllis and she'll pass them down.
Okay, can I pass it out to everybody?
Well, just hand them to Kevin. We'll pass them down.
Okay, all right. You know you guys are staff.
We can do some things ourselves, but that's great, Marcy. Thank you.
I want to show you.
Do you mind going back to the mic just so we get all your comments?
This is a shot from my backyard. The reason I brought this picture, which I took last night, was to show you how it affects a property owner personally. This is a shot that where you see the bush in the corner is where the corner of my lot is. What you see is currently being built. You see the 2 stories, you see the 3 stories. What you're talking about is what's going to be built to the right of the picture, which is going to be in my direct view. Okay? You see the buffer zone. You see the trees, the grass that they are actually watering in that area. You see how close it is to me. I see it from my backyard. I see it from my deck. I see it from my back windows. Whatever you guys approve is going to be in my direct view. And it's going to be in direct view of Sam, who testified right here, Terry, who's my other neighbor who could not be here today, Joe, who could not be here today, people on Wiggins, people on Pitkin. Okay? Tonight, we're back here again with a non-conforming plan again. This is like a bad dream. I can't wake up. I bought a house 2 years ago relying on a plan, relying on pictures of a buffer zone that had a park, that had benches, that had trees, flowers. I think it even had people walking their dog, might have had some rabbits and squirrels in it, okay? But here we are again talking about a non-conforming plan. This one's worse than the last one. This one is going to affect our views. It's going to have devastating effect on our views. It's going to affect the enjoyment of all our properties. And I really think it's going to affect our property values. And this will affect the residents of Wiggins, Carville, and Pitkin, because it affects the land directly behind all our houses. Once again, we have a proposed plan for a dense cement walls that does not comply with the design plan. The design guidelines are out the window once again. The concept plan is actually even more disturbing this time because it provides for an alleyway behind the houses And in our view, I'm sorry, I'm a little upset about the whole thing. I'm trying to relax. The alley, as I understand it, is going to be directly along the line of the residential buffer zone in the 25 feet that we foolishly gave up. And what would happen is that alleyway would lead to cars, car lights, noise that would be pointed directly at all our fences. This does not comply with the design guidelines. We cannot have a road connecting Cold Creek through the residential buffer. Not only will we see the road and the traffic from our backyard, decks, and windows, we will get the lights, noise, pollution, and congestion that will affect the enjoyment of our properties and our homes. I ask you that you reject this plan, reject the density, reject the alleyway, and give us back our residential buffer zone, which my understanding is that it's supposed to be a wildlife buffer zone. Again, when I bought my house about a year ago, I looked at the plan. And I only bought it after looking at the proposed plan and the design guidelines. And I saw a park, I saw benches, and I said, gee, I can live with that. I can live with a...
We're over.
I'm sorry.
You're just a little over 5 minutes, so if you
Oh, I'm
mind wrapping
sorry.
up, thank you.
Okay. I said I could live with this plan. But this plan's out the window every time I turn around, and I'm back here again. Again, I ask that you not approve this plan. At the last meeting, Trustee Sandy Pennington said that you guys are the gatekeepers to our community. I ask you to close the gate on this one and vote for the residents. And I'm sorry I'm over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sarah Owens, 1259 South Waldona. I'm just making a general statement. I wrote it down, so I'm going to read it. You've talked a lot about community. You've used the word community a lot in the meetings tonight. And I ask that you just do not forget the existing community. You've talked a lot, this development is about future members of the community. There are a lot of us who have lived here. I've lived here 11 years almost to the day. We invested in it. We've put hundreds of thousands of dollars into our homes. All of us have. And the priority seems to be in the future rather than the people who already live here. And it's a big concern for everybody that's here in the room. We invested in this money because we believed, looking at Superior, and we trusted that Superior is going to remain the same kind of community that it was when we moved in. That has changed rather dramatically. I was once asked by one of you, I saw a road behind my house wasn't finished. What did I expect to happen? And I wasn't given really the chance to answer it, but the answer to that is we expected 300 to 400 single-family homes, just like we were seeing in the rest of Rock Creek. We did not expect 1,000 townhomes. We did not expect hotels. We did not expect restaurants. We had no reason to expect this. This came as a huge surprise to us, and a very unwelcome surprise. We did not move to Superior for an urban experience. We moved here as a place to raise our families. Quiet, tree-lined streets. Some of these, including mine, are being threatened now as becoming higher traffic streets, which they were never designed to be. So please do not betray our trust and our very large investments. Hundreds of thousands of dollars is quite a lot of money to have lose value because our views, because our streets are being turned into thoroughfares, even though they are family streets. That's not the way Superior was designed, but that's the subject for a different meeting, I believe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any additional public comment?
Hi, Sonia Critton, 685 East Wigan Street. I want to reiterate my respect and my thankfulness for the people who've spoken before me. What they've talked about is, we want to reiterate, which is that we need to actually respect people who've been living here for 20, 25 years and have been paying taxes, and it feels as if nobody cares about us anymore. It seems as if the new developer and the people who are trying to put forth their projects are being put in front of us. And so I want to just ask for the trustees to really look at the value and the commitment that the people who've been here for 20, 25 years have put into this community, because it really feels like we're being trashed. All you have to do is go up and down McCaslin and see that you can't even go up and down the streets anymore because the high-density vehicles are completely ruining our streets in order to build the 1,400 new homes for the developer. So please, please, all I can tell you is keep in mind that those of us who've been here for 20 to 25 years have added value. We respect all of the work you do. We value your time and effort to be here tonight and for how long you've been here. And please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Again, there will be opportunity for public comment at the public hearing, which is coming up, so stand by for that. But
my name is China Leonard. I live on Brandon Court, and I've been in Rock Creek for 26 years in October. And I don't have anything new to add, but I would like to go on record to say that, yes, through the years we have spent so much time working out town plans and what to do when the day comes when the town would finally be developed. And it just seems as though so many of those plans are just going by the boards. Height restrictions are being ignored. We've given up part of the buffer zone. There were supposed to be a certain type of housing along the buffer zone, and then all of a sudden we're getting super high density, no backyards. It just seems as though we're seeing very different things from what we had planned for a couple of decades to have Superior be. Thank you very much.
all right, any additional public comment? All right. All right, we'll move on now to our presentation segment. And the first presentation we have tonight is from Let's Go Colorado campaign.
Thank you, Mayor. Brad Doyle is here tonight to present to the board on their proposed ballot.
Okay, very good. Do you have our slide there?
Yeah, he's going to pull it up right now.
So Brad, thank you for coming in. Just an introduction, Brad and his group have been before Metro Mayors before, which is a group I'm involved with in Metro Denver. And this is a ballot initiative, a very significant ballot initiative that's coming before voters this fall. So I thought it would be useful to our residents to hear more about it. So welcome.
All right, very good. Thank you. So I'm Brad Doyle again. I represent, I'm a project director with Atkins. but I'm also representing Move Colorado and the campaign in general as we go through this tonight. What I'm here to discuss is the Let's Go Colorado campaign, which is proposing to place a 0.62% sales tax initiative. We're asking for everybody's support in this initiative as we move ahead. What we're trying to do with this is to modernize the way that our highway infrastructure, our roads and streets and that are paid for beyond the current methods of fuel tax. So I'm going to go through this real quick. I understand we just got some limited time here, so I'll move real quick, and if we have any questions on that, we're happy to answer.
Thank you.
So essentially what we're doing is to relook at how roads are paid for. The last time that a fuel tax was increased in Colorado was in 1991 when it was set at 22 cents per gallon. It has not changed from 22 cents per gallon, which has no relation to inflation or the price of fuel or anything. It's been fixed since 1991, and we were spending about $126 per driver on roads back then. Since then, oops, I went one too far there. So just a quick thing that over that time period, the value of that money that we had passed, 22 cents, has basically the value due to inflation has been cut in half. And today, that dollar that we were spending back then is worth 54 cents today. So just some quick facts on what things cost versus then versus now. We're seeing that road resurfacing, for example, has increased 120%. Meanwhile, fuel tax has remained fixed over this time period. There's a lot of other things that have gotten a whole lot more expensive over this. Road construction is among them. The big thing that has really been impacting the fuel tax is the increasing efficiency of the automobile. The amount of gasoline that they burn per mile has went down. The fuel efficiency has improved by 18%. Well, what this means is less tax per car per mile, further compounding the issue that we've been facing. Meanwhile, the growing population of Colorado, population over the last 50 years has increased 164%. Meanwhile, our lane miles have only grown 17%. This is now attributing to the congestion that we're seeing. Our rush hours are getting worse, they're extending, they're becoming much longer in that, and it's just because you have a whole lot more cars using that same space on the road. So our coalition has been looking at what we're going to do about this. Colorado at the state level is facing about a $9 billion project shortfall. I mean, they have $9 billion worth of projects lined up that we could build if we had the proceeds to be able to do this. And for every year that goes by, we're running about a $1 billion surplus at this, or deficit at this point. So every year it goes by, there's about $1 billion worth of maintenance, improvements, and things that are not being completed. CDOT, the entire state, cities, counties, municipalities are all facing a very real issue with budgets to do any improvements to our roadway infrastructure. So today, we're only spending about $69 per driver per year working on our roads. It's about half of what we spent when the fuel tax was increased in 1991. So a statewide coalition came together. We've been working on this for about 5 years. This is a coalition that's made up of entities statewide. We're talking about the metro mayors. We're talking about the Eastern Plains, the Western Slope, Republicans, Democrats. It's really a bipartisan issue to try to come together and get this. This is just a sampling of the coalition members that are involved in this at this point, and the list is growing every time that we meet. So we looked at a number of revenue options, the easy ones: vehicle registration, fuel tax, transfers out of the general fund, and income tax. None of those were making much sense. They just didn't work. They weren't sustainable. It was a declining revenue, or it was taxes that people just really, really hate. And so what the group came together and found as the best solution is to raise a sales tax, again, 0.62%, which is enough for us to fix the problem. It's enough to address the $9 billion list. Actually, it only addresses about $6 billion. CDOT is going through a prioritization process to see what really needs to be done. It adds money into the local economies as well to things like the town of Superior to work on your highway or your road infrastructure. Everybody pays a little bit. including the tourists that are visiting us, because that's one major revenue source that we have in Colorado is our tourism. So when they're coming and visiting in hotels and restaurants and all that, they're paying a sales tax, and everybody pays the same rate. It generates $767 million in the first year. Our initiative sunsets after 20 years, so that 767 fluctuates year by year as the economy fluctuates, but this will sunset after 20 years. It allows CDOT to take their proceeds that they get from this and bond for $6 billion worth of projects. The initiative overall gets about over $20 billion into the state coffers for road infrastructure. And what that really breaks down to is about 6 cents on a $10 purchase. So the Colorado Department of Transportation will receive 45% into the state highway fund. Counties will get about 20% of this. Cities will get 20%, and then 15% will be set aside into a multimodal transportation options fund. And I'll explain more about what that means in a little bit. So at the state level, it allows them to address some strategic projects that they need to be completing statewide. You know, projects that impact the people living up here in this community are projects like SH 287, the BRT system on 287, US 36 and 28th Street improvements in Boulder, 119 BRT, and improvements on the SH 7 corridor. It allows local communities to prioritize what local communities need to spend on the roads and sidewalks and things that matter to you. This money can be spent on sidewalks, bridge repair, road repair, transit projects, whatever, and really the flexibility is being left to local communities to determine what is needed for them. For towns like Superior, over the 20-year period, it's worth about $10 million. There's a lot of B's and M's that get thrown around when we're having these discussions. So $10 million for Superior. Boulder County receives about $118 million over the life of this effort. Multimodal Mobility Options Fund, the 15% that gets set aside to that, allows communities to leverage against the 15% that will be collected at the state level, to leverage against your own money that you have to bring in transit projects that matter to your community, whether that is rideshare programs or buses to circulate around the community or whatever your community needs. It also allows funding of multimodal projects across the state for various other communities, and also provides money to CDOT to fund interregional transit like Bustang to expand that network that CDOT has already been starting to operate and servicing major corridors, allow that continue to expand to provide that statewide transit option. So just wanted to kind of summarize what we're talking about here. It's a reliable revenue stream that modernizes our revenue away from a fuel tax, which is really a declining revenue stream for us. It prioritizes multimodal mobility and really talks about allocating funding into the local communities, where allowing you all to be able to prioritize what matters to you and what is important to your communities as that. So my apologies, I went through that fast in response to your time, but if you have any questions, I will certainly take those.
Thank you. Appreciate the information. Just so the public is clear, this presentation is strictly for education. Our board has a policy of not taking positions for or against ballot measures like this, but something of this significance, I think it's always useful to have information and for people to make their own decisions. So that was the purpose of tonight's visit, so appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, question. First question for Matt. Matt, our current total sales tax percentage right now is 8.445. What would this, if this passed, what would that do to our sales tax?
Our portion of sales tax?
Total sales tax.
Well,
Would that
we'd
put
be
it
above 9.
Yeah, so it would
Yeah.
put us above 9.
But I mean, it's statewide, so everybody so we are relatively in line with all of the other Boulder County municipalities on what their sales tax rate is,
Mhm.
and everybody would be assessed this increase, so everybody would continue to be in line as far as a competitive sales tax.
Yep, I get that. So
And our portion, just to be clear, is 3.46.
Right.
And then the other part of that goes to the county and to the state.
Right. Just the reason for that question is we've thrown the idea of possibly increasing just our sales tax here in Superior to fund some of our own projects. And how would you expect us to support something like this if we wanted that option to do in the future, whether it was for a rec center, community center, or whether it was for our own road repairs or for some other project that we felt was very valued in this town? How could we justify voting for this, and then in the future we want to do something on our own, and then we have to increase it even more, which prices us way out of the market on sales tax, especially when our town is dependent on sales tax revenue. If we're viewed as a town that people don't want to come and spend money because we're way over everybody else, then we're really shooting ourselves in the foot. So how would you address that?
Well, and I may ask, so Carson Priest is with the campaign here with me as well tonight, so Carson may have something to add to that as well. But just in my quick observation of this is that your sales tax rate is comparable to other communities around the state, maybe even a little bit lower in some respects than that. So I still think it would be a competitive market. I know of several communities, my own included, that is above that of what you have here in Superior. So I still think it'd be competitive. Certainly you would have the option and still have plenty of capacity below the statewide cap.
Okay, and is this something that can the town of Superior opt out of?
No.
So if it passes statewide, then we've got, our sales tax goes up by just like everybody else.
Yes, it is a statewide initiative.
Okay. Then the other question is, I'm still stinging about, and I'm not sure, was it RTD or CDOT that had the tax increase that we were supposed to get rail line from Denver up to Longmont, and it was a huge deal, only to find out that we barely could get a bus service to take us down to Denver. So how do we address that with our residents, that if you're saying that this is going to go towards road repairs, sales tax increase, but we already approved a tax increase for other transportation issues that we never saw. So how do we justify that?
So one, that was an RTD tax that was passed, part of the Fast Tracks program a number of years ago. And that, you know, the other aspect to consider on this is that there is a multimodal component to this initiative. The Transportation Commission approved last week that rail projects would be eligible to be included within the multimodal portion of it, left up to local planning organizations' discretion on how that gets done. So you'd work through your planning process to determine whether Northwest Rail could be part of this program or not for the multimodal option. You know, I guess, Carson, do you have anything to add?
Sure. It's, I think I would just say that it's part of CDOT's planning priorities to look at things equally, and we as a campaign cannot necessarily influence that process. So whatever the Transportation Commission decides is where we go. But we certainly understand the frustration, and we've expressed through multiple channels as the local money is very, very hefty in this corridor along where Northwest Rail could be, and you could pool that money and match it against state dollars, like Brad said, in the future, against multimodal funds. So you choose with your priority.
Okay. Just last question. At the state level, have we exhausted every other avenue of reworking the budget, looking at a budget on how we spend money on the roads? Because we've tried other things, and this is one of the things that comes up a lot is our state just doesn't know how to manage their budget. There's got to be other ways. I mean, supposedly there's this windfall of marijuana sales tax that, you know, it's supposed to be going to schools, and you know, why, if there is so much, why can't that be funneled towards roads? Again, that just strikes me as odd. But isn't there other options out there as opposed to raising sales taxes to everybody? And then I guess it's interesting that you'd give money back to the communities when, you know, we have our issues with our roads, but by and large, I think we keep our roads up pretty well. And as a trustee of this town, I'd actually prefer to keep it the status quo like we are, and we manage our own roads and use our capital for our roads and not worry about everybody else. Who is this going to benefit the most? I would imagine you'd say, well, this is going to benefit everybody in the state of Colorado. But in reality, who is it going to benefit the most? Is it going to be the mountain communities to get people up there so that they can spend money up there? Or who is this, in your opinion, going to benefit the most?
Okay, so you had a couple questions there. First off, addressing this at the state level using other means. You know, certainly we looked at transfers out of the general fund as an alternative in that, and this year legislators saw fit to pass a bill to transfer money to CDOT out of the general fund to the tune of about $500 million. And then that is not only going to CDOT, but it's also being dispersed to cities and counties using the Highway Users Tax Fund formulas. That was a great effort, and we appreciate their efforts they've done. But due to the other pressures on the general fund, that was about all that they could afford to do. This year we do have a surplus with a number of taxes, like you mentioned. So that was a good shot at getting some money into the road infrastructure. That's $500 million, of which CDOT gets about $300 million against a $9 billion shortfall. So you can understand how that came in well short of what the state is really looking at needing. That is not a sustainable source of funds. To be able to fund multi-year projects, you need a sustainable, dependable revenue stream, such as a sales tax, to be able to fund multi-year projects. We cannot build large projects on a yearly allocation of funds because those projects go multi-years in that. So we were looking for something that's more stable and reliable to be able to fund a $9 billion program at the state level, plus all the money at the locals. The second thing is about, the second part of your question was about, you know, the local funding efforts in that. And certainly there was a lot of communities that talked about doing that, initiatives in Superior and Boulder and Denver and all places in that. We were really wanting a statewide solution to be able to say we need to fix problems that oftentimes get ignored out of local initiatives in that, because you know, certainly we're spending money on local streets and roads and projects that impact us in that. But the reality is that our citizens are leaving the communities that we live in to travel to many other places in that. So even if the road may not be improved in your neighborhood, the minute you drive into the next county or want to go to that destination here or there, you're using infrastructure that will be improved within this. So therefore, I mean, like you said, it does impact the state as a whole. We like to say, even if it's not directly in your backyard, you're being benefited by it as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good discussion. Thank you. We do need to move on to our other presentation. So we appreciate you coming out and giving this information. So thank you. Oh.
Can I just ask one more question? How many states currently have a statewide sales tax for transportation?
I don't know that explicitly answer to that, but I can tell you that in recent years, there's been several that have been moving towards this and passing initiatives similar to this. So it's been kind of a recent push.
That was pretty political. Would you say right now it's less than 10?
Carson,
could you guess?
I wouldn't go on record in saying that until I look it up. But
okay. As you continue your marketing materials, I would get an answer to that question.
All right, very good. Thank you.
And how many states have combined average sales tax over 9%?
About 15, roughly. So we are ranked 16th average right now, 8-point-ish%. And if we do this, we'll be ranked as a statewide combined average about 15 or 14, depending on what other states do in November.
And would this sunset, or is this perpetual?
It does sunset after 20 years.
20 years. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Our next presentation is from our municipal judge, David Thrower. Welcome.
Good evening. It's hard for me to believe that this is my 17th year associated with the Town of Superior Municipal Court, and it's been my privilege to have served both as your prosecutor and as your judge for the past 4 years. In the 24 years that I've been an attorney, with respect to my colleagues here who may understand this statement, I've learned that sometimes it's best to be brief. So given your agenda tonight, I'll try to do that. You have a memo that I've written for you, I think. I would just say that I think that the Town of Superior Municipal Court is operating in a very efficient manner, one that supports the rule of law, one that also recognizes the benefits of a community court and correcting behavior. I'm very proud of the work that I've done here along with staff, particularly the court clerk, to make this an efficient process. I think most of you know that we have 3 arraignment sessions per month. They're all on one day. A morning session for code violations, an afternoon session for traffic, and another afternoon session that's devoted solely to juvenile defendants. We also have an additional date that we use for trials. We see, sometimes on our traffic docket, we may see 50 or 60 cases, and we're able to get through those in about an hour and a half because of the efficiencies we've employed. I spent my morning this morning developing another efficiency, again, thanks to town staff. I recorded my advisement of rights so that can be playing as folks check in and make the process even more efficient. My goal here is to make sure everybody's heard, but not take up too much of their time either. With that, that is a summary of Superior Municipal Court, kind of the short version, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have. Yes, ma'am.
Talk to us about our youth. What sort of issues are we seeing? I'm particularly interested in alcohol, marijuana, you know, dangerous activities that could be life-threatening.
You asked me that same question 2 years ago,
Right.
and I'm proud to tell you that at least my perception is that the number of alcohol tickets have decreased since I spoke to you last. Most of what I see on a juvenile docket these days is traffic. I do occasionally see more serious things. I would say the majority of alcohol tickets in this community are the 18 to 21-year-olds, typically students at nearby institutions. I've met with representatives from those institutions to talk about sentencing alternatives for those folks. But in terms of juveniles below the age of 18, the most serious things we've seen lately have been things like shoplifting. We've had a few issues with fires, campfire kind of things out in the park. But in general, I would say 80 to 90% of what I see in the juvenile docket is traffic. So I think that's good. And I'm not sure what to attribute that to, but in any event, I'm happy that I'm not seeing more serious juvenile issues than I am.
How about marijuana?
I've seen a few marijuana and paraphernalia cases. I can't remember the last one that I saw. It's probably been 6 months.
So you're impressed with our youth?
I am impressed with our
Okay.
youth.
You don't
Actually-
see any emerging issues we should be aware of?
I had an individual at our last court session who came before me prior to arraignment, having done about 2 times the things I would have ever sentenced her to. There are exceptions, but by and large, the folks that I see in our juvenile docket see this as an opportunity to correct behavior and are willing to be respectful and work with the court to do that.
Thank you, Judge Thrower. One of the issues that was raised in our last Transportation Safety Committee meeting with Sergeant Chamberlain was regarding enforcement on residential streets, and in particular, increasing enforcement on residential streets. There's been numerous concerns raised about just, you know, speeding is enforced on Colton, on Rock Creek Parkway, on McCaslin, but on the residential streets, that's where people are, you know, speeding, and that's where there's considerable danger with, you know, kids riding bikes, people backing out of their driveways, and not necessarily the ability to be everywhere at all times to actually catch the speeders. Have you seen any increased enforcement from the sheriff's office? Any additional citations, in particular related to residential streets?
I would say that my perception is that the enforcement has been consistent in terms of the number of cases I see. Obviously, I can't affect enforcement. That's not part of my purview. But in terms of the cases that I do see, I will confess that the majority of those are on larger roads, larger streets, such as this one right out here and Colton Road. I have seen some, though, in residential areas. I can't tell you that I've seen them increase or decrease. I'm not always looking at the exact street when I am dealing with these cases. But I have felt like there's been something of a consistency there, just from my perception.
And last year in our budgeting process, we allocated funds for an additional officer from the Sheriff's Department, specifically to increase enforcement. So not including necessarily the residential streets, but have you seen any sort of uptick on in citations and enforcement in general?
It fluctuates, but my impression is that it has been increasing. There were some dockets last year that I remember hearing crickets because we weren't super busy on the traffic dockets. But my impression is that that has increased, I would say, in the past perhaps 3 months or so.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Congratulations on your appointment to Estes Park and Mead.
Thank you very much. I owe a debt of gratitude to the town of Superior for helping me achieve those goals. And so you all know being a municipal judge is what I want to do, and I want to do it as often as I can, perhaps even full-time amongst a lot of communities like this one. That is, I've found sort of my passion after all these years.
Great. We appreciate the work you do.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All right, our next presentation is from our CAPS committee. Welcome.
I am Melinda Tan, co-chair of the Cultural Arts and Public Spaces Committee.
And I'm Debbie Yates, 115 6th Avenue, CAPS Committee.
And Media and Instruction. So we're here just for a quick update for the Crosswalk Initiative. So you probably looked at, oh, that's after that.
It's before, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay. So as of now, we have, I think, August 4th on the agenda, or on our agenda, for actually facilitating this. We've got the three, so this is our design that we've decided on for the three initial crosswalks. I think that's going to be our, kind of like the nascence of this program. And we're starting with something very simple. Some might have eyelashes. And then the three areas where we're contemplating are the Sycamore and 76th. This is a very wide, busy intersection. And then Indiana and South Torrey's Peak, and the North Pole. So these were all chosen because they're exceptionally busy, higher incidence of, potential safety problems. And the designs that we have chosen, these, are very simple. We're doing a template form. We're working with Alex on some colorful, on color. We're having a hard time figuring that out because it has to be a paint that will stick, and I don't know the technology for the type of paint there is. But we want it to be easy, and we want it to be easy to maintain for the town. So if all goes well and it's easy and the paint sticks for a while, then hopefully we can do something more fun going forward. Actually, I skipped over and I don't know how to go back, but one of the first slides had like a really colorful design. So at this point, we want to make sure it's easy for the town to maintain. Well, yes, first and foremost for us to do it. But so going forward, if it's a template design, then it might be easier for the town to maintain it, to kind of go over it with the template and things like that. So,
can I ask a question on just? I love this idea. I think it's really whimsical and fun. My question is the purpose of this for the pedestrian or for the driver?
I would say both.
Yeah, I would absolutely say both.
Because, the look with the eyeballs, I mean, I don't think people who are driving are necessarily gonna notice that. Whereas, like, when you had something that was really bold and colorful, like the one that was multicolored in the beginning of the packet, that's something that really stands out to the driver. So if you're looking to get the driver's attention, I think you should be going in a direction that's a little more bold. If you're looking to do just something that's fun for the kids and pedestrians that are walking across the street, you do the little squirrel, you do the woodchuck, whatever that is, you do the look. Prairie dog. Sorry. Yeah.
No, I really agree with you. I mean, I think
looks like the gopher from Caddyshack.
So that's a groundhog.
Yeah.
That's a, yeah, no, not a groundhog, it's a.
It's a little
Groundhog.
fatter
Groundhog
than,
Day,
yeah,
that's right.
it looks a little
Right.
fatter than
So, but the goal is to go more colorful
Yes.
after the trial and
The
pilots.
goal is
and
definitely
whatever.
to have more fun with it and make it, more colorful,
And
so.
vehicle and pedestrian, because they've actually shown in Europe that people are texting so much on their phones that when they're walking along, they have special, that's where the look comes in. So they're texting and they're walking across the street, and they're like, whoa. So that's, the look one is actually kind of a pedestrian one, but then the car ones, the vehicle ones will come in down.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily expressing an opinion one way or the other. I think this is an interesting experiment. I just want us to be mindful of who the target audience is for the project. And if it's for drivers, we should be mindful of the drivers. And if it's for pedestrians only, then
Yeah, it'll be curious to see how we gauge its effectiveness. So hopefully people will think it's cute and pay attention. And I think the goal in the future was potentially to involve schools, especially around the crosswalks for the schools. And so to have the kids do it and be engaged in the creation of the design.
And the painting even.
Right, and even the painting, so.
So if the trustees want to help paint, they should gather where on August 4th?
Those 3 places,
I think we're
Southport,
starting
yes.
over by Sycamore first.
Okay.
Yeah.
And will these be painted on all 4 crosswalks, for instance,
At that intersection?
at
Well,
the given
Sycamore
intersection?
yeah.
Well, Sycamore has,
It depends on
Yeah.
how many there are, yes.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so
Good, great,
it'll be
thanks
our
for the update.
first venture. And then the other CAPS update is, oh, yeah, isn't it? Oh, I don't know how, anyway, we have, so, what, I don't know where the, oh, we're looking at down. No, there's no down. Oh. So, Bloomberg has presented his revised concept for the Zephyr and Triptych, and the CAPS unanimously approved the revisions. So
Can we see the color one?
the color one? Yeah. I thought this was a strange representation. It looks like the white one is painted. It's not painted. That's just silver. That's just metal.
These are the actual.
These are the actual rings.
Material that he's using for them. I mean, it actually will be 3 colors, 4,000 rings. Do you want me to bring them up?
is Dow going to come before the board again, or is this it?
I think committee's talked to him or Katie about coming out and actually meeting out at the roundabout.
Yes, and doing community art awareness. He'll do presentations, and so we're setting almost a PR marketing kind of thing once it gets a little bit closer, like in the fall.
And now that school's starting back up, in 2 weeks, we had that discussion during the work session with CAPS about, adopting, the classroom adopts an artist, right? And that if that's still an option, if Dow's interested in doing that, I think we should definitely do that, because I think that the kids would just have an absolute blast.
Yeah, so we've talked about how to facilitate that. That's a little bit, tricky, but that would be, he is completely open to maybe doing some Skyping and to filming his studio and to keep people involved in the process, which would be great to show. And then these rocks right here are not representative of what will be there. It's going to be more of an organic rock. Or
He will choose the pedestals, and then he carves them in basically what he feels is appropriate to enhance the sculpture. So that's just kind of a placeholder for right now.
Right. That's not a representation.
Do you have any input on that, though, when he carves it? He's an artist, and the artist will do what he wants.
I think we will. I think we're going to work. Yeah.
He's very willing to cooperate and amazingly open to ideas and feedback. And
yeah, I think we're going to help.
We saw some really neat renderings of the signage, the newest version of the signage for downtown Superior, and some of that, it looked like rock, but it was a kind of a steel.
Layered,
what was that called?
It was some kind of a sandstone layered kind of, that one?
Yeah.
That it actually was
Layered
made to
earth or
look
something,
like-
and,
yeah.
and those
Yeah.
as a base would perhaps work really well. So
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
keep
they
that-
might complement each other to work
Mhm.
with that, so.
Maybe keep that, just keep that in the back of
Yeah.
mind as,
Actually,
as an option.
goes to Georgia someplace in different quarries to pick out these huge pedestals for carving. But we can bring that up too.
And I can't remember what, the installation you just did for the memorial for the.
For an Aurora.
Yes, for
The Aurora.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember what the bases were for those birds that he has flying, but they were on something too.
Right, but they were so much more shallow.
Yeah, they
because
were much more shallow.
The doves were coming
Mhm.
up into the
Right.
sky like this, so he didn't need that height like we need.
Right, right. Good.
Quick question. Just on the rings, and I'm sorry if you mentioned this already, will they oxidize over time, and is there a process, like every couple of years, there's a solution you gotta put on to clean them, or is?
I think the bronze and the gunmetal color are actual industrial airplane
Paint.
grade paint. And I
I think it,
I think it lasts.
we can get to the exact details on it. I mean, they've tested all this and how many years it holds up and all, it has amazing durability.
Yeah.
So the silver ones will look like what you have there,
Mhm.
and then the
Oh.
other two will be painted with the airline paint.
So the ones that look like they're ground, that'll stay like that? It won't?
It should. So.
I mean, sometimes oxidation looks good, though. I mean, when it, over
Right.
time, it oxidizes nicely, so I just
I don't
wanted to
know,
know,
that's
is it something that has to be
I
maintained?
don't know the answer to
That's a
that,
good
so
question.
that,
We'll
yeah,
find
we'll
out.
have to ask
The
that.
important thing for the board to know is that Katie, the staff liaison standing back there in the corner, is going to actually make trips periodically to Kentucky, to the studio, to monitor progress. I would hope maybe the CAPS chair might be considered for that as well, to make sure this stays on track. I personally did not like this rendition because I think the bases are the wrong color. They're round rather than cut and stuff like that. And I know that was the discussion in the CAPS meeting, is what happened to the angular bases, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all been articulated and hopefully will
Yeah,
be
he was
front and
just
center.
showing the height.
Right.
With these, so that's not an accurate representation of what it's going to look like.
But what he has done in this is in the attitude of the figures. They're now basking, they're arched more, they're enjoying the 300 days of sunshine while the wind blows at them, that kind of thing. So,
We're thrilled with it. We think it
Huh?
looks great. We're thrilled with it. We
Mm.
think it looks beautiful.
Looks
So
awesome.
We're excited about it.
Okay, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
sure.
You're welcome.
All right, next is our consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the
So
consent
moved.
agenda. Motion by trustee Lasis.
Second.
by trustee Hansen. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you. Next is item number 4, adoption of a resolution reappointing the municipal judge and alternate judge.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by trustee Lasis.
Second.
Second by trustee Hansen. Any discussion?
Do we have to? No.
I just said that. All right. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you. Congratulations.
You have to do the
Oh.
Sorry.
Read the resolution, or sorry, okay,
Skip
resolution
over.
number what?
R36.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion approving resolution number R-36, series 2018, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior appointing a municipal judge and associate municipal judge.
Second.
All right, motion by trustee Lasis, second by trustee Hansen. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Again, good. All right. Item number 5, adoption of a resolution appointing members to the Planning Commission. We have 4 applicants for 2 positions, and to handle such a situation, we have ballots. So we will take a moment and pass some papers around and make our votes.
Kendra, is the protocol to put our name on these?
It's already
Oh,
on
it's
there.
on there.
It should already
Okay.
be on there.
Good.
on more.
One more.
Sandy's got hers out yet.
Oh, yeah, one more down at the end. Woodchuck. No, that's cute. Gopher.
Turtle.
Okay, so Ben Miller, Dalton Billette, Ben Miller, David Harper, Ben Miller, David Harper, David Harper, just one on that one. David Harper and Dalton Billette, Ben Miller and David Harper, David Harper and Dalton Billette. So I show Miller 4 and Harper 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that right? Did anybody take count?
That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it does.
Doesn't it? Can we just
Just double.
recount?
Yeah, recount.
Okay, recount.
Just verify the vote. Certify the count.
Okay.
Certify the vote.
Miller, Violet. 1-1. Yeah, we could do it this way too. Okay. Miller, Harper.
Okay.
Miller, Harper.
Okay.
Harper. Harper, Vela. Miller, Harper. Harper, Vela.
So we have 4 for Miller, 1,
Correct.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for
Correct.
Harper, and 3 for Billette.
Correct.
And that's what I should.
Yep.
Yeah, the first.
Okay.
Okay, so double check.
That's good.
Yep.
Certified.
Yeah.
All right. So, congratulations, David Harper and Mr. Miller, our new planning commissioners.
There's a resolution.
There's a resolution, and we just have to fill in the names.
Okay, we'll fill in the names. Do we have a motion to approve that resolution?
Make a motion approving resolution number R-37.
Yes.
Series 2018, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior appointing members to the Planning Commission, including Ben Miller and David Harper.
But they have to be assigned.
They have to be assigned terms. Typically, what you would do is the one with the most votes gets the longer term.
Okay. So Miller's
Set.
2020
Yes.
That works for me.
and Harper's
Yeah.
2022.
Right.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Motion by Trustee Lasis, second by Trustee Hansen. All those in favor? That passes unanimous. Congratulations again. Thank you very much. And thanks to all the applicants. It's always great to have residents that are willing and able to help out with our committees and commissions. It's what makes our town great to have so many people that are interested in helping. So please continue to apply and be involved. So thank you very much.
And vacancies open up, so.
And vacancies open up, absolutely. And many of us started our careers, little did we know it, that where we would end up. But, so yes, you never know where it will take you. So thank you again. All right, next up on the agenda is item number 6, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with American Ramp Company for the skate park construction. Patrick, welcome.
Good evening, Board. Patrick Hammer, Town staff. There we go. So as you know, from stemming from last year into this year, Parks and Rec staff working with the members of ProStack started on a project to replace the 20-year-old skate park equipment near the South Pool. We had received a handful of safety complaints. I think the board will remember we've replaced the old wooden material to the tune of about $10,000 each fix, and quickly realized that the skate park at the South Pool had just run its course. The equipment was no longer available. The technology had changed. At that time, we'd worked with ProStack to try to come up with just a quick replacement fix. But from that communication, and if the board will remember the amenity prioritization, ProStack put together a budget request saying, hey, is there any appetite to increase this facility, make it more of a skate park as opposed to just a little skate stop? And the board approved that in the 2018 budget. As we started that project, we quickly realized that the skate park at the South Pool was sitting on top of a number of fairly important utilities, including a gas line from Xcel, an electric line, and some sewer lines. Staff notified the board early this year that there was a conflict. At that time, we were given the go-ahead to maybe explore some alternative locations, which we did with the members of ProStack. We first looked at Wildflower Park and putting the feature next to the existing pavilion off the road. There wasn't a lot of appetite to add that feature there since we'd already eliminated it once in a previous conversation. So we landed on Autry Park. So what we're bringing forward tonight is a contract with the American Ramp Company to do a turnkey process to install largely what you see here, an in-ground skate park with an asphalt pump track at the Autry Park location.
Okay, I'll just start by saying I think it's a great design. I think it's a great location. And I think this speaks to concerns we've heard earlier about what are we doing for existing residents. I mean, this is absolutely for existing residents. I've heard a lot of comments from our younger constituents when the other skate park went out of service, and I've had consistent questions ever since then. When is the new one coming? And so I will be pleased to vote in support of this moving forward tonight.
And to quickly add to that, we, as part of the dialogue on March 12th with the board, we did also move forward with replacing, or we are in the process of replacing the old South Park amenities with new amenities that are scaled towards that site. So you'll have replacement features that are appropriate to that site that didn't require us to bore down or remove any concrete as well. So there will be features at the South Pool as well as the new location at Autry Park.
What specifically is going to get installed up at the South Pool?
I think we have a quarter half pipe, a rail, and a launch box, if I believe.
Okay.
So would you discuss usage? Who uses this, the intensity of usage? I mean, is this a proven popular amenity at South Park?
We'd always known that it was a huge community use. We'd actually started to hear that, you know, due to its size, that it was tucked in the neighborhood, that it was a great place for kids to start to learn. It was also a place that moms and dads who skated in their earlier years could take the kids out and literally, you know, get their first taste of going on a half pipe. We'd also heard that there were a number of older teens that, you know, would participate and hang out at the swimming pool and then leave the swimming pool, transition to the skate park before heading home. And just anecdotally, we know from the second that we took it away, by the number of phone calls and emails that we received, that it was an amenity that gets used quite a bit.
So who do you anticipate is going to use the new one? Is this going to be an older
I think you'll
group
probably
who-
get a little bit of the same.
Okay.
I think that the nice addition of replacing or adding the features back to the South Pool is for those that are wanting something a little bit tucked in the neighborhood, small scale. That'll be an option. And then for those that are wanting to try something a little bit bigger or a little bit more advanced, this is now an option that you have in town as opposed to going over to Louisville.
So what do the bike paths look like? If you're used to going up to South Pool, you know, what do the bike paths look like to Autry? And can the kids just bike over here safely?
Absolutely.
Yep. So there is a network of trails, including the underpass under Rock Creek. We, as part of this, through some other funding mechanisms, have already started to pre-plan out adding a more robust trail system, including concrete trails. As you know, we do have a standing trails maintenance budget that sits within our annual budget appropriation that could be used to improve some of the trails over here. We've also reached out to Bell Flatirons, looking at a potential connection from the apartment complex over the creek. And we've also had preliminary dialogue with Alex Arenello in Public Work about adding another bridge crossing a future parking infrastructure off of Honey Creek that would allow people to cross over.
Chris, Rita,
Patrick, you said one of these features is a pump track.
Yep.
So can you for
Sure.
skateboarding, can you explain just how that would work? I
Yeah.
understand the pump track thing, but
So fairly
Not
new
totally.
fairly new technology that we learned about actually through this process. This kind of combination asphalt, dirt pump track that you can actually accommodate scooters, bikes, and skateboards on. It's kind of a multi-use system that would go along the outside here of the hardened skate features on the inside
so it is the pump track is dirt.
with asphalt over the top.
Okay.
Yep. And it's a relatively new technology over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's got a decent measure of success when we were calling around, kind of checking our resources and research.
And what was the refresh my memory on the features at the one by the South Pool? I know there was the bowl, the half pipe.
Yep. So we had the half pipe, and then we had kind of just a small launch box that we removed about 3 years ago. The metal lips on all that material started to rise up above the concrete by about 1/4 of an inch, which was causing quite a few incidents as people would come up, wheels would hit that, and then people were going over the top.
Yep. Yeah, I think that this actually will get used by a wider range of users, especially newer users. You said this would be more for advanced, but there's so much more flatter area on this one, whereas the other one was a half pipe. It wasn't very big. It was actually a small half pipe, but it could be very intimidating when you're sitting on top of it and you're just learning how to do it. So this here gives them, I think, more opportunity for people to learn how to do this of all ages. I will say, though, that I was a little shocked by the sticker on this. But I do think it's something that's of value. When I was the liaison for ProStack, I think it was at least 6 years ago, we were having this discussion about putting in a new skate park, and we looked at something a little more advanced, but at the time just wasn't the right timing. But that was before we had issues with the one. So I think it's a good idea, especially if the rest of the board doesn't have an issue with the sticker on it. We have to put it in perspective. I mean, we look at some of our other parks that we spend several $1 million on, and if we look at Autry Park and what we're doing there and what potentially could happen there, I think this is money well spent because we are making that a destination park. I will say that at some point we need to take a look at the disc golf park, not get rid of it, but enhance it and maybe make it more manicured so that we don't have to worry about snakes when we're playing disc golf. And then, but then that really truly becomes a destination park with so many features. You have your bike park, because this wouldn't replace the current bike park, correct?
No, not at all.
Yep. Potentially you have, what is it, paddleball, or what's that one? Pickleball. And then the dog park and then the disc park. It really makes it a really fun place to go to. So I think it looks cool. Nice job.
Rita, and then Kevin.
I think it's important to remember for the people that have looked at this in the public that this is huge compared to what was over or is over by South Park. This is not a replacement. This is a new skate park facility with a lot more features and usability, functionality. So I like it too because it's a real skate park. It isn't just something where a few kids can go and fool around with their skateboard. The one thing I do think that, and I'm sure you'll have it someplace, are tables or benches or someplace that people could sit. Particularly like if a family wanted to go out and spend an evening with their kids, you know, where would others sit to watch them? I know most of the kids will be, and the people will be inside the park, but definitely could have someplace where people could sit and watch and rest in between their half pipe. Thank you.
Kevin.
This could be in the packet, but apologies, I'm also having technology issues this evening. Can you just confirm that this was bid competitively through the state system?
Yes, it was. In 2017, we bid this project out. Basically, what we're looking for is somebody who can help us with public engagement and do design build. At that time, we only received one bid back, which was the American Ramp Company. We did further research to make sure that they were also part of a municipal cooperative purchasing agreement, which they are.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Fully supported. Great job.
So, Patrick, great job from staff, and also, ProStack's been working on this for, 5-6 years, and this is something that is long overdue, in my opinion. Just a couple questions. How does this compare in size and scope to kind of neighboring communities, skate parks like the one in Louisville, the one down Apex Center?
It's comparable. This definitely takes us from kind of the neighborhood, pocket skate park to a little bit more of a, I wouldn't quite say a regional destination because so many places have them, but I do think that this will be something that would come from Boulder, Louisville, and Superior. I do think that the pump track around the outside is a unique feature that matches well with the existing bike park. The combination of the asphalt pump track and the existing bike park, I do think, set it apart from what you're going to see in the area.
And how much are you estimating the improvements to cost up at the South Pool?
There was about, I want to say, $13,000, which we had, again, in our standing budget, we have a playground furniture replacement line, which we were able to fund those improvements out of.
And just for disclosure to the residents, so we had originally budgeted this item at $300,000 in last year's budget. That budgeted amount contemplated building the skate park at the South Pool. Then we learned about the XL gas line and all that stuff and realized that we couldn't actually build the skate park. And then ProStack was working with staff to make a recommendation to the board, which we then went with on Autry Park for a second location. Because it's going down to Autry Park, there's additional costs associated with that because it's in the floodplain, things of that nature, right? And so the fact that we didn't go forward with the pickleball for $175,000, it's essentially a wash in terms of at least what the budget was planning on spending on amenities
this year.
This year,
yes,
right?
So is pickleball dead?
This year, yes.
But there's still, ProStack is still looking at pickleball in Autry Park.
And other locations.
Looking at pickleball, maybe elsewhere.
Okay.
In addition to
So-
Autry. I mean,
It could
Autry's
still
one.
go there.
Yeah, it could.
They just wanted to see more response from the public, based on what they heard from the board.
Well, I think this is great, and I'm really happy that we're moving forward with it.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I just want to make a quick comment that this is something that's been on the amenity list of ProStack. I think as long as I was on ProStack and now for my 2 terms on the board, it addresses not only the kids who want just to replace the existing skate park, but it also responds to a need that we've expressed for some time, is to have something for older kids to participate in. We just don't have a lot of amenities other than organized team sports, and so this is an opportunity to serve that sort of tween, older, younger teen demographic, and even up into some of the older teens, and we'll even see some adults there. So I'm pleased to hear that the rest of the board seems supportive of this, because this is something that's been on the wish and dream list for ProStack for some time, and I know they appreciate your support.
Thank you. I'll take any public comment. Anyone in the public that would like to comment on this agenda item before we take action? Any public comment? Yes, go ahead.
I just want to let you. I just want to thank.
Come on up. Come on up. Yes.
So
bring your skateboard too.
My name is Jack Chang. I live at 5280 Conway, and so this is a vintage skateboard, 40 years plus actually. You can now know what my age is. But bottom line is I take my kids over to Scott Carpenter, over to Apex as well, and having one of these at our, in our town is pretty awesome. And then I don't know about other street, but basically from my street, Zircon Way, there's already 5 kids skateboarding around the street. And then myself and my 2 kids, so that's 7. So I'm sure there's going to be plenty of usage once this is built. So I want to thank ProStack. I want to thank all of you for making this happen. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick Hagerbarmer from Amherst Street. I'm an old skateboarder myself, plenty of broken bones. Has the city considered the liability they're going to be taking on? These were popular in Los Angeles in the 70s, and they took them all out.
That's right.
So I'm just wondering.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Good evening, Ken Lish, 1326 South Idalia Court. I want to compliment Patrick and the group for pulling together a great design. I do have a few questions related to how this impacts the budget in future years. Specifically, the pump track, does that need to be resealed or repaved on a regular or consistent basis, considering the design of asphalt being laid on the dirt? And knowing that this is in a floodplain and we have fairly expansive soils, is that going to impact the longevity of this as well? From a more just general standpoint, what is the life expectancy of an amenity of this type? Are we looking at a lifespan of about 20 years or 30 years? Just trying to get a better idea of how long we could expect this to stay here until we have to reconsider a new park. Beyond that, has there been design considerations to ensure that if we do end up having another flood, and this is in the floodplain, that it can withstand a flood without deteriorating the design and us having to go back to the drawing board and reinvest all this money? So, thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? All right. I'll invite Patrick back up, maybe to address some of the questions that were raised during public comment. Would be great.
Thanks, Patrick Hammer, town staff. All great and valid questions, and all questions that we looked into. We did work with Merrick, who's our hydrologist. You guys heard me probably talk a little bit too much about hydrologists on the pickleball court. We did the same evaluation here. This contract price does have about 2.5 to 3 feet of over excavation and earthwork that'll go into it. There is some water displacement that'll take place just with the rise of the skate features. It will have an underdrain system that'll daylight into the creek. In a major event like we've had in 2013, this would likely be overtopped in this corner here. We did look at some floodway mapping as well as previous photos during the 2013 flood to try to identify the high water mark and orient the park as much out of the way as we could. In terms of the asphalt, there is a coating that would need to take place over the top. That's something that we would factor into our annual operating budget, which we've anticipated, to be anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 annually for the skate park, in addition to about the $2,000 that we're already spending over at the bike park.
So what is the life expectancy?
It's a concrete skate park. I would anticipate that it's around for 20, 30 plus years. If you get a major flood event, which is somewhat unpredictable, that is a risk of building in the floodway. But I feel confident in the design and the orientation that it'd be around for a while.
Patrick, the question that was brought up about the liability concerns, I know that is a concern we've heard in the past, and I know the Southern California area very well. From San Bernardino to Los Angeles to Orange County, there was skate parks everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like almost overnight they went away, and that's what we had heard was because of the liability issue. So what has been the thought on that, and how will we address that?
That's maybe something the town attorney can answer.
There are plenty of places in Colorado with skate parks. You enjoy governmental immunity from most things, most torts. I think the design we're relying on the fact that it's a safe design, and that's all we need to do at this point. I mean, obviously we hope that nothing happens, but I think we'll be fine.
Okay.
Is it recommended to post that any user assumes personal liability?
Yes, there should be some signage posted, and we can work with staff on doing that.
Okay.
Okay. Patrick, talk about the timing on from if we approve this tonight, what the timing is for completion.
We've had conversation with the folks at the American Ramp Company who anticipate that this would be substantially complete, if not final completion, by early December, if we are able to get going immediately, barring any weather contingencies. But again, this is what they do. This is not new to them. The benefit of doing kind of a design build is very much what we're getting now, which is a very quick turnaround from approval to final construction.
Okay. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion.
Kevin, if you want to
No,
do this
you do it,
motion.
I'll second.
I'd like to make a motion, a Town of Superior Resolution number R-38.
Yes.
Series 2018, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving a construction contract with American Ramp Company for the skate park construction.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Hansen and a quick second by Trustee Hammerly. And we need a roll call vote.
Dozell?
Yes.
Folsom?
Yes.
Hammerly?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Lasis?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
All right, congratulations, skate park enthusiasts. You'll be skating by the holidays. So, all right, barring any unusual weather. All right, now we're on to item number 7, a public hearing and adoption of an ordinance and resolutions approving a residential development in the Associated Metropolitan District for the property located at the intersection of US 36 and South 88th Street on approximately 21 acres, also known as the Anderson property. So with this, we'll be opening a public hearing here shortly. It's just before 9 o'clock. We'll probably go till 10, maybe 10:30. Most likely we'll be continuing this public hearing until the next meeting. So again, if you don't get the opportunity to make public comment, we would either welcome it by email between now and the next continued public hearing, or you're certainly welcome to come to the next public hearing as well. So with that, we will open the public hearing, and proof of publication is confirmed.
Yes,
Thank you. Confirmed. All right.
Mayor, so we'll start the process with the presentation from the applicant.
Okay.
You have the staff's memo on this application. Staff is here for any questions the board might have, as well as questions for the applicant. So with that, I'll invite them up.
Thank you. So we'll start with the presentations, and then once we get through presentations, maybe a couple of questions from the board, then we'll open it up to public comment. So, thank you.
Does this keyboard work to advance? Yeah, you use the arrows.
Okay.
Perfect. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees. My name is Mike Cooper with Boulder Creek Neighborhoods. How are you doing this evening?
Great. Thank you
Good.
for being here.
Good to hear it. We're very excited to be before you tonight to bring some active adult product that we have to Rock Creek Ranch and to the town of Superior. We're very excited to be here. So we have our full consulting team here, Norris Design, Civil Resources, and LSC Traffic Consultants. If you have any questions at the end of the presentation, they can answer some more technical questions if you have any. So you're probably familiar with us. We build at Calmonte in the south part of town there. I'm sure you're all aware over the past many years. We're primarily a Boulder County and Northern Front Range builder for the past 12 years. We're based in Louisville. Maybe relocating soon. Maybe we'll come to the town of Superior. We'll see. So primarily we build patio homes. We also build some cottage homes and townhomes. The key that ties it all together is our low maintenance lifestyle, and we sum that up in our brand called Lifefulness. So what is Lifefulness? Really at the heart of Lifefulness is respectful communication with our home buyers and homeowners, as well as amongst ourselves and our trade partners. That's a key to our brand. Non-typical floor plans, durability and efficiency, and low maintenance lifestyle. And part of that low maintenance lifestyle that we bring that really differentiates us from most home builders is main floor living and minimal steps or zero step into the house, right-sized efficient floor plans, and really high-quality homes, low maintenance for the homeowners, but a real high-quality, high level of maintenance by the HOA. The HOAs are key to our buyer and our demographic, and really what creates a lasting community for us. As you're familiar with Calmonte, our luxury townhomes, I think we have one home left to sell now, and we'll be done with that portion of the community. We're very excited to get that built out. Very successful project. Our patio homes are coming online, the second phase of that
that project coming online now. I think we sold maybe about a dozen or so. For Rock Creek Ranch, we are proposing a paired patio home. The images that you'll see coming up here in the next few slides are from Steel Ranch in Louisville. And working with staff, we chose photos rather than images mostly because if we have the built product, it's just a better way to see the product. So the product is very similar to what we built in Steel Ranch here. It features main level living. These are one-level homes. It appeals to our core demographic of empty nesters and downsizers. Optional finished lower levels. There's about 1,500 to 1,700 on the main level and about 1,300 to 1,500 square foot optional lower levels. As I'll go through the next slides, you'll see there's a high level of architecture on all sides of the buildings. Again, low maintenance on the outsides of the homes and the community, as well as portions of the home itself. It is a fenceless community. There are some fences I'll show you, but nothing enclosing a front or backyard per se. We're proposing 3 different plans, 3 building types, and 9 different color styles, so there'll be a good variety of homes. What's great about this product is each building has one side load garage and one front load garage, so it really looks like kind of one bigger home, and you never really see both garages when you're looking at the front of the house. A lot of articulation to the roof lines and the facades. And really what's great about this product is the extensive outdoor living spaces. So since we don't have fenced in front and backyards, we have a lot of covered decks and porches, which are very large in size. This product we take up a notch and we add even a patio in the front yard to give them even more space. So you can walk out your covered porch onto another patio space that has a low seat wall and an arbor trellis above it. And as you can see, there's columns out on the street with some ornamental fencing to really give some life to the streetscape. Really an attractive product. This slide shows some of those spaces I mentioned. On the deck, on the back, there's a covered deck which wraps around the one unit. I think these are probably about 20 plus feet long, pretty deep too. Covered porches. Here's some patio spaces with a trellis. We have some arbors over the garages. So really, we took this to the next level, added a lot of features to the fronts of the homes to even make them more attractive than they already are. This slide will also demonstrate the parking situation. So we have 2 cars in the garage and 2 cars parked in the driveway. We'll also have 1 additional parking space on the public street for guest parking. So there's plenty of parking here for these homes. Every other building has a shared driveway. As you can see here, these are the side load garages. So we take each building, we'll mirror it, and we'll share up. So you have less than the number of curb cuts on the street, creates more parking, more trees. This is a view of the backs of the homes, and as you can see, this is demonstrating the 360-degree architecture. We really don't like to back these homes up to other homes because there's a lot of living space off the back of the home. So this is typically how we like to set it up, is there's a green belt, and that's kind of how this project is set up as well. But as you can see, lots of fenestration and back patios on the rears of the homes. And this slide demonstrates a transition level home and a garden level because we may have some of those on our site here. Generally, these homes are about 26, 27 feet tall because they have pitched roofs on them, which are about, I believe, a 6-12 pitch, so the depth of the building, they get a little bit taller. With the garden levels, might add another 5 foot to the height of the home, but generally they're one level, and maybe a garden level is what we're thinking on this project to take up some grade. So just to get you oriented to Rock Creek and where our site is, to the north is downtown Superior, obviously. Our Calmonte project is down here. The Zaharias project is to the east. Our site is about 21 acres. It has RAC, which is Regional Activity Center zoning on it. It's a pretty intense commercial use from the Rock Creek PUD. It allows up to 120-foot buildings, and I'll go through some other statistics like that. But obviously, I don't want to say it's obsolete, but throughout the course of the development of Rock Creek, it clearly, the demand in the market didn't occur for that land use. There's some commercial down to the southeast, the Safeway Anchored Center, the Central Elementary School and Rec Center and Pool. and more of the developed regional and open space parks in Rock Creek. And this is the network of open spaces between the neighborhood pods, which have trails through them, and it's really what makes Rock Creek a pretty unique community in my opinion. And up in our parcel there in the northeast, we'll be continuing that network, that open space network from the west side of our parcel to 88th Street. And then looking at all the trails, going through those open spaces, we'll be extending that trail. I think there's a dirt trail out there now, and we'll be improving that to a paved surface, and also extending bike lanes and the regional trail up to on Coal Creek, and also providing for the US 36 trail either on our property or adjacent to it, depending on where that's constructed ultimately. So we got involved in this project a couple years ago with a commercial developer who made a proposal for a self-storage complex, and we had our homes obviously further to the west. It's about a 1 acre building. It was 3 stories, I think about 40 feet tall, and a couple incubator one level storage buildings here. So it was a pretty intense use. Obviously got a lot of negative feedback from the neighborhood and staff, and it did not go forward. I think it went 2 submittals and several months in, and the developer backed out, so we moved forward with developing the site for all homes. This is a graphic that kind of showed the massing of that building and how that would look, and our homes are up here. We also looked at, just to demonstrate what the RAC zoning is, because one of the proposals is to rezone it to do a PUD amendment to allow it for residential use. This is all surface parking, 4-story building, probably about a 60-foot height building or so. And to really max out the site, you could do 120 foot, 8 stories, parking structure, but these proposals would theoretically meet, the requirements of the zoning. Not to say that the market is here or anything, but just wanted to give a frame of reference. And as you can see, our proposal much more compatible with the neighborhood in terms of the size of the homes and heights of the homes. So going through our site plan in a little more detail, circulation-wise, Coal Creek dead ends right now at our site here, and we are working with staff. We propose to build it all the way to the edge of our property, and as you saw on the Toll Brothers plan, their plan conceptually at this point is to bring it down to this point. So circulation-wise, per the comp plan, that's all going in that direction. We worked with staff to allow for the future Promenade Drive to come through here. So we've reserved not right-of-way, but land that would be deeded to the town for future use. The Planning Commission, I believe, recommended they wanted that to happen as a condition of approval. So our street is pretty simple, 2 cul-de-sacs. This longer one has an emergency vehicle access out to 88th Street. Here's the regional trail that I mentioned, getting improved, making that connection. The US 36 trail is not shown here, but it would be somewhere in this area and eventually going underneath the bridge here, I believe. I'll show you some views of the streetscape coming up and what that looks like. It's got detached walks and tree lawns. We couldn't make a connection up here due to grade issues. That question came up at the Planning Commission, so that's why there's a cul-de-sac there against another cul-de-sac. We have one utility connection that goes through there. We have a trail connection that can go from this cul-de-sac to the regional trail here. Overall, we meet the 45% open space requirement of the Rock Creek PUD. We'll be dedicating all of the drainage way in the regional trail area to the town. The town currently owns this portion of the property down here with the existing detention pond. And this is an overall just showing how this community, our neighborhood, will tie into Rock Creek, showing the extensive buffer, the drainage way and the trail. And that's kind of how I showed you, that's really ideal for these homes, how they back up to the open space in that area. So this is a view as you're coming down Coal Creek right here. And here's the edge of our property as I showed you, and coming in this area here. kind of showing that the character, like this is sort of a view from the existing neighbors, kind of shows the buffer, the drainage area, the regional trail, kind of how far those homes are. As you can see, the very attractive rear facades of these homes as you drive into the neighborhood. This is a view of the streetscape with the tree lawns. As you can see, the developed patios in front of the side load garages on some units, and patios in front extending off of the porches off some homes. The homes that back up to US 36 will have a sound wall here. We're required to do an 8-foot sound wall, but we've chosen to bump it up to 10 foot, working with staff just to provide some further noise mitigation to not only our residents but to the homeowners here. The benefit to these homeowners is about, I believe, up to 3 decibels per our sound study. So the build out of the homes and the sound wall will have some benefit to the existing neighborhood, and obviously more significant benefit to these homes. I think it was about a 10 decibel reduction with the provision of the sound wall. This slide shows an excerpt from the comprehensive plan, the transportation plan. As you can see, Coal Creek is slated to go through our property here, and we are providing that on our plans. So this is, per the comp plan, what's slated to happen, connection. So that's being provided for, as mentioned. This is our preference. If we were to make a connection to downtown Superior, this would be our preference. Obviously, our preference is not to have a road back here if we don't have to, from our sole neighborhood benefit. But we are providing for the promenade connection to happen if it's the town board's desire and the general town's desire to have that road connect. And we're also providing the option to do both if that's what's deemed best. So really, if it were up to us, we could do none of them and have it dead end here, and maybe a pedestrian and bike connection. We'd be open to that. So what you'll hear tonight from the neighbors is mostly the road networks and the impacts onto Rock Creek. Obviously, we heard them at our neighborhood meeting and at our planning commission hearing. We're willing to partner with them on different solutions that we can do in their existing neighborhood. I'm sure you're going to hear about, potentially closing off Weldona Way and the impacts that local street is kind of acting as a collector, and we certainly understand that. So, we would be interested if this were the connection, to work out solutions within the neighborhood potentially to lessen that impact. So, just wanted to give our frame of reference on that for what it's worth. But you'll hear loud and clear from the neighbors, I'm sure. But generally, we've had good support for this product and the site plan from the neighbors and staff. Really, there's been not too many objections in terms of the heights of the homes and the product. There's definitely support for an active adult product in the neighborhood, so we're excited about that. Also before you tonight is a Metro District service plan. We do conform to the town code criteria for special districts as a 25 mil cap, 25-year max term of the bonds, the debt services for public infrastructure, and we will be doing all the community maintenance by the HOA, because that's key to our communities is getting that HOA in there and having that high level of maintenance, not only on the publicly owned tracts or the public tracts, but also on the lots and portions of the homes as well. So we always have some HOA presence in our communities. In terms of zoning and code compliance, as I mentioned, the Regional Activity Center, RAC, allows 120 feet, 40% max building ground coverage, and 20% minimum open space. Obviously, we're changing that to a lesser intense use. In our PUD amendment, we established the standards for setbacks and open space and building height. So you'll see all that on the right column over here. We derived that from looking at the Rock Creek PUD standards, which didn't have a complete set of guidelines, and then also looking to the town code for reference, and that's how we derived all of our setbacks, building height, and open space. As I mentioned, well, setbacks, I should say, for our product, since we don't have fenced yards, setbacks don't really mean all that much. So generally there's an open field, as you can see from those images. It's not really, you're not really set back from anything other than the building next to it or a road pretty much. So, so just to clarify some of those setbacks, we have 20 foot if there's a front load garage. If there's a side load garage, we have 12 feet and 5 foot side setbacks and 10 foot to streets. And the other ones to open space doesn't really pertain because it's just kind of backyard to blending into open space. So that sums that up. Just going through briefly the criteria. We meet all the requirements as outlined in the staff report. I won't read these verbatim. This is for the PUD rezoning, and we meet all those. The final plat site plan refers to consistency with the PUD plan, so if you prove that, then we'll obviously fall into line with what we're proposing on our PUD. Meet all those criteria, and then finally the final plat really just refers to provision of utilities and other services, and we meet all of those criteria as well. And just to conclude, I will do a short video that kind of summarizes some of the images, if I can. Maybe it doesn't work. Oh. That's magic touch. Thank you. Sure. There's no music, but I could hum if you want. Do, 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 do. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Better than the back of my head.
Thank you.
So that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, I'm available or for our
Okay.
consultants. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll start with questions. Chris?
Can you go back to, before you got to into the grids, the slide that showed the entire property, the town center, and then part of the existing
Sure.
Rock Creek? Yep, I think it was that one.
Well, Dan.
Right there? Oh, wait. That'll work, that's fine.
Like one of these?
No, the one that was, yeah, one of that, like there. I think that should work. So I normally don't usually start off the comment period, but I think it's important. You're gonna get lots of comments tonight, and it's gonna be extended to the next meeting about probably roof lines and colors and streets and setbacks and all that kind of stuff. But the elephant in the room for me is the access points. Since I've been in Rock Creek, I've been in Superior for over 20 years. I've always understood this to go through to what potentially could be a town center. And I'm fine with that. I think that's great. And if you and Toll Brothers work together and make that work, I think that's a good choice, providing we get the proper speeds and all that down there. What I'm not a fan of at all is this dead end. For the last few years, we've sat on this board and on the Traffic and Safety Committee about the traffic issues on Weldona, and we've made serious efforts of trying to fix that without trying to spend a ton of money. I'm not a fan of closing Weldona off, and I know that there's some residents here that would love to see Weldona closed off. I don't think it's the right solution. But if you have a cul-de-sac here, you are absolutely going to increase traffic on Weldona, and it can't be done. And as much as I like your product here, it's a non-starter for me. So I think that's something that we need to know up front, that if this is a dead end here and it's just a service road, I'm not in on it at all, because you're going to make those residents' lives miserable. So I think we need to revisit this Everything else, I think it looks great. There's all kinds of good stuff going on here, except for that there doesn't work. And that's all I have for now.
Well, I'll jump in on that. I agree that we should not kick this can down the road. What I'd like us to have discussion on is this idea of the advancement of Promenade. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Lantern going out to 88th because I don't think that makes sense. I think what we need is Lanterns plus Promenade. Either, yes, I think we need both of them. And
So you're saying you want Lanterns to do 88th as well as Promenade?
no, Lanterns to do what it's proposed to do on this plan, which is be a cul-de-sac, but have Promenade constructed, and I think we'll have additional discussion with staff about how that gets done, because part of that's on your property, part of it's on other properties, and part of it's on our property. But the bottom line is we need to have connections made for this development to not throw impacts on existing residents, and to really help the existing, it would give the existing residents a new way out to 88th Street without, without cutting through where they have been on Weldona. So
you're saying that if you live on this house here, you have to go down the street here and then down?
Yes. I mean, much like the interior streets below there have to do to get out to 88th Street now. They've got to go down to Weldona.
Yeah.
So
my first thought, and I was thinking about that earlier. If you have a resident here, are they going to go out here and around, or are they going to go up here and then down? That was my thought. Except if you make it easier to exit here, because there's already a light here. We've got a light in a somewhat of an intersection. It's pretty much already there. So it seems that it would be really easy for.
It's south of there. It's right there.
Yeah. And I think there was some discussion about, should we open this cul-de-sac? And I say no, because these people bought this as a cul-de-sac, and that shouldn't change. So this, though, coming out here to this intersection, I think makes all the sense in the world. I don't know if we require people to come out here and around, because I don't think most.
Well, I think the future issue, though, is I think a Promenade connection is going to be inevitable if we want connectivity to downtown Superior.
Yep. I agree.
We don't want to channel all of that down Coal Creek, which would then go through all these. It would just funnel it down Lanterns Lane, which I don't think that makes sense either. So I think this. I think this Promenade Drive, and I like the fact that you've got a sound wall there. I don't think that will impact your residents too much, and especially if it goes in on day one. I mean, if it goes in on day one, then it's there, and it addresses. I think it addresses the issues from this development, but it's really about addressing the issues moving forward.
Well, when we worked with staff early on, we didn't fight it. We knew it was a priority and a viable option that the town was considering, so we didn't fight it. We reserved the land there for right-of-way or a tract or whatever. So we're providing for any of these options to happen. Whether we connect out to 88th, I mean, we would be open to that if it met, traffic rules and regulations. We wouldn't be opposed to that. Our Lanterns Lane having a connection out to 88th, that would probably be a good thing. So we're really working cooperatively with staff. We worked, to set all these options so that we could have the discussion now, or the town board could have the discussion with neighbors and decide what makes the most sense. And we're creating a framework which kind of accommodates any of the above to happen. So.
Okay. Yeah. Sandy.
But whose idea was it to put a cul-de-sac on the east end? Was that staff's or yours?
Well, in its current, I should probably let a traffic consultant or Alex answer that, because I think it's a street status, like if it's a collector or a local and backing out with driveways. So if we connected through, it would lose its local status, I believe.
Was that your idea or was that our staff's idea? I mean, where did this idea emerge from?
I believe it was, we came to that conclusion that it had to be it needed to be a cul-de-sac. because it needed to be a local street.
Yeah, because I'm totally with Chris on this one. It actually, one, I'm very familiar with the Lanterns product. I have a good friend who lives in the one in Steel Ranch. Beautiful street. And frankly, there where you had all that RV storage and everything, you really just rejuvenated part of town that I wouldn't have thought would be lovely, and it is lovely. But this is a deal breaker or a deal maker, how we handle this traffic issue there. And I was frankly just surprised that there was a cul-de-sac there when we know what damage creating islands does, because we're trying and have tried for as long as I've been on this board, 8 years, to solve this problem at Waldona. So to create another problem here by blocking that off unnecessarily, Chris, I agree 100% there. So, and I'm not immediately convinced that letting it be a cul-de-sac and funneling traffic at the way it would go, either Promenade or on Waldona, is a solution, because I think there's going to be half of it that goes down Waldona, and Waldona can't tolerate that. We're just exacerbating a problem. So I'm happy to see that you're willing to work with us on this one. And frankly, I'm just telling my colleagues up here, I'm not sure this is the context to resolve this problem. It seems to me that we actually need to get our traffic people in a room. We need to have some constituent meetings with our residents to lay out some scenarios here, to try to figure out what's the best way to do this in conjunction with the Toll Brothers proposal, in conjunction with existing problems we have. So I'm happy to encumber this meeting with just this transportation issue, but I also have other matters I want to bring up about this specifically.
Sure.
That are different from transportation.
Absolutely.
So I'm actually going to stop talking, let other people weigh in, because we can do this a number of ways. We can take the transportation, sort of do it separately in the context of a holistic picture, or not. So I'm going to just listen to what others.
So I've been thinking about this application and just this problem a lot. When we started on the Transportation and Safety Committee trying to address the situation on Waldona, I was in the minority and advocated for closing off my Waldona entirely. We ended up with speed bumps, which seems to have slowed the traffic down, but hasn't done anything to decrease, cut through traffic. In its present form, this will lead to more cut through traffic on Waldona, and I can't support it in its present form. Now we can fix it, and I think we can, and it shouldn't be too hard. But we need to be smart about this, right? One of the things that was raised in the Planning Commission meeting was, oh well, if we open this up to 88th, if we open up Lanterns, we're going to create another Waldona. People were speaking in the meeting about creating a Waldona, like it's a known problem. It's a travesty. I mean, we should be trying to solve that problem, right? And not just acquiescing to the fact that Waldona is always going to be a problem. It doesn't have to be. Right. We can close it off. We can close off Lanterns, right? People shouldn't be looking to connect through residential streets. Trustee Ryan had his 20 is plenty proposal to try to slow down the speeds on our residential streets. We're trying to increase enforcement. We're trying to make our streets safer. And now we're talking about increasing connectivity in residential neighborhoods where people are going to back out of their driveways and kids are going to be riding their bikes. That's nuts as far as I'm concerned. To me, the only thing that makes sense is that this Coal Creek extension, it does not go through to the north. This development essentially becomes Rock Creek North, right? It is subsumed within this entire development. There's no Coal Creek extension to town center. There is an extension from the town center to 88th. but it does not go through a residential neighborhood. We close off Weldona, and then we install a traffic light at Rock Creek Parkway and Coal Creek and ask the developer to pay for it.
Question, is it possible, are you sure the extension is possible with that other road behind Lanterns? Have you looked at the engineering on that?
Yeah, we're providing for a 60-foot right-of-way, which will accommodate the Promenade Road.
It feels, so there was
Well,
no.
Jim, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Jim Brostovich, Civil Resources, 323 Fifth Street, Frederick. Kevin, I'm not quite sure which part are you asking is feasible?
Promenade.
So Promenade through this section?
Right.
Yes, it is feasible. We've looked at cross sections here where it's.
Can you use a pointer?
Sure.
Please, Jim.
This section right here is a 60-foot right-of-way, which does provide for 2 travel lanes. There's enough room for the 10-foot detached regional trail on one side. If it goes there, there's a possibility that that regional trail could go in CDOT's right-of-way, which would provide us a little bit of extra room to do some additional landscaping. Also provides for a 5-foot sidewalk between the road and the sound wall, and a landscape buffer between the road and the sound wall. So this section here really isn't compromised. This section here is a little compromised because of the detention pond that exists here and the embankment of 88th Street that comes down. This is about a 45-foot, call it right-of-way. It's not platted as right-of-way on this plat, but it would be a 45-foot section, sidewalk on one side, on the west side, 2 lanes of traffic, 2 bike lanes. And there will need to be a retaining wall constructed along part of this because the detention pond would get squeezed too much if we just built the full roadway section. This is a little goofy here. We've worked with staff and looked at this movement. It can accommodate trucks and fire trucks and things like that. This is always going to be a kind of a weird intersection no matter what.
And there's no adverse consequence to future widening of 88th if you do this? We're not taking.
This does not extend. CDOT actually owns this here.
Okay, so we're not infringing on any of our.
We're not infringing on that. There's
future.
there's a drainage and there's some really small utility things, but nothing that would make it feasible or any more or less feasible than it is today.
Okay, thanks.
Rita.
I wholeheartedly support Mark's comments because this is the last piece of Rock Creek Ranch Filing 5. It's not Superior Town Center or downtown Superior. It is part of the residential development. I know it was meant to be an RAC, but it's still part of the Rock Creek Ranch Filing 5. So let's leave it as part of that rather than try and make it become part of something that it's really not. I love the look of it. I love the way you build. I've always loved Boulder Creek builders. I like that you have grass and trees and yard and things that you can actually see is yours, of the homeowners would be. And I agree that why are we trying to figure out how to get to downtown Superior through your development? There's no reason to do that from my perspective. Coal Creek Drive, there was nothing ever planned beyond that point where it's dead-ended right now. And really, you don't have to be responsible for doing anything beyond your property line. And I think that having the ability to create the promenade connection around and into downtown, but not necessarily through your development, is a benefit for another way out of downtown Superior. But I don't think we need 2 ways through your community to downtown Superior. It's just not necessary and appropriate for your small, livable community. So I like that suggestion. Coal Creek ends there. You could even add another paired home, I think, where that that street is there.
We'll take it.
Yeah, I know. And maybe you might have to give up a little bit on this other end, but I think that would be a workable solution. I don't know about closing off Weldona. That's up to the residents, really, and the Traffic and Safety Committee to try and figure out if that makes sense. But definitely, if you did this, you're going to have people coming down through there. I could see where that would happen.
Well, I support that. We weren't keen on building Coal Creek to the edge of our property, but we knew it was part of the transportation plan, so that's kind of, we were just trying to set it up so we could get before you with an approvable plan or something that could work depending on what you decide. So I agree with your notions.
But can I just add something else to that?
Sure.
So I've always understood Coal Creek, the original intent of Coal Creek was to go down to what could be the town center or whatever we were calling it back then. But just recently, actually, I could live without it not going through. But the thing that we do have to have in there is some kind of trail access that goes directly in so that our kids coming from Rock Creek can ride their bikes down there. Or, you know, perhaps it's wide enough that someday we do allow golf course that you can take electric vehicles down or something. But at minimum, you have to be able to allow bicyclists and all that so they don't have to go down McCaslin or other busy thoroughfares.
Well, you could have that 10-foot concrete path that connects with the path that's already through Tract H.
Yeah.
You know, you already have the trail system that's in Tract H up there, and then you can connect to that. And I think that's 10 feet wide.
But
that's how wide it is.
you're still saying, Rita, though, to have that connection off of 88 that goes to the town center, or not even do that?
Yes, I think that, well, here's the thing. You need to have another way in and out of downtown Superior, but that's not your, Boulder Creek Builders' problem. This would be another way in and out without going through the roundabout. That's the only way out of downtown Superior is the roundabout. So this would be a relief for those residents that are being built for Toll Brothers to get out to the east side. But I don't know that that's, again, I don't think it's their responsibility to create another way out. But we have to think about that.
Well, I think
What
there's an
would be another
opportunity,
way
though,
out?
for the two developers to work together to come up with some kind of solution. I do think that we can ask of that.
But if you think about it, right, if you're leaving the town center, if you're leaving downtown Superior, right, if you're just not thinking about this application, not thinking about any application, but just thinking about it from a perspective of just common sense, right? You're leaving downtown Superior. Should you drive through a residential neighborhood to get anywhere you're going? No.
No.
Like, you should be taking arterials that gather towards, bigger roads and then feeding out towards wherever you're going.
We're being a little gratuitous here. Let's go back to the planning. Coal Creek was made more of a parkway. It's wider. It has no driveways that back out of it. I agree with Chris's interpretation that it was intended to go through. Now we can always decide we don't want it to go through for whatever reason, but let's not be gratuitous here. Let's accept that it's wider. It deliberately has no garage driveways backing out onto it for a reason, because it was anticipated that it might go through. So we need the broader plan. For example, Rita, if we don't have that Coal Creek extension, then we impact planning area 3 and that easternmost commercial space, because
Which easternmost commercial place?
The previous board made a deal with the developer that if they moved it out of the way, then they can claim all of that flex space for residential on the east edge.
Which is what's being proposed.
But if it truncates right now and it doesn't go anywhere, what becomes of that easternmost commercial space?
There is no easternmost commercial space left. It's all proposed to be residential.
No, it was dependent on the movement of this Coal Creek connection over to the east. And if there is no Coal Creek connection that moves to the east, then to me, we've got to sit here and discuss what happens to that. We don't just give that away if in fact that developer has not had to do anything. So there are impacts here that we can't sit here and just dirtbag tonight we got to do it right. I like some of the ideas I'm hearing, but let's be careful here. You know, there are impacts, unintended consequences, so let's just be deliberate about how we go about it all, and great if we can arrive on a plan that works, that we all agree to, but there are impacts.
But the intent on Coal Creek, it was never built, right? And a
Because
neighborhood.
we didn't have a town center. We didn't have
But it
that
was never built.
connection.
And a neighborhood has now developed around it, and people have lived there for decades. And our first priority needs to be preserving that neighborhood, preserving the quality of life for the people that already live there, and not doing anything to negatively impact them. And you can't look at it in isolation because, you know,
But
there's
the
going to be another
community does
Let me
need to
finish.
be
Let me finish.
integrated.
No, connectivity is something that you need to look at it on a case-by-case basis, and you can't just make it a blanket assumption that connectivity for the sake of connectivity is good, because it's not. It could drastically alter the nature and the feel of a neighborhood, and you can't look at this in isolation because the Zaharias property across 88th, you know, who knows when that's going to come before the board, but if and when that does, and if and when that develops, how is that going to then play into this entire transportation plan? Are all those people going to be traveling down Weldona and then up through Coal Creek? Is that what we want?
Well, I'm not
So-
disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is, let's be deliberate.
Right.
Let's be careful to make sure we've got every I dotted, every T crossed, and we get it fixed. I'm much more interested in doing it well than doing it fast tonight.
Yeah,
That's
Mark,
what I'm
I
saying.
agree with Sandy. I don't think, you know, when we look at this, I think we need to look at this area and overlay the Toll Brothers plan and think about the detention pond, think about the impact to Track H, think about the impact to their potential road planning. And if there's a partnership there, then I think it makes sense. Like Chris, like Sandy, frankly, my expectation was this road would always connect. I'm not being crazy about it, saying, well, let's make that road connect for connection purpose. I think this is a really good suggestion. If we could do this, I don't know why we weren't talking about that a year ago. If we can create that road behind houses, I absolutely don't want to, I would not personally be supportive of connecting this, this cul-de-sac through 88th, and then we're creating another cut through of residential neighborhoods. I think that would be a terrible idea. But if we could build something, a road without any back out driveways, without an adverse impact to this community here, so long as the rest of the community is supportive of, somehow getting into downtown. We need downtown Superior to be successful, right?
But why don't you want to connect this through?
The cul-de-sac?
Right.
Just as you said, I don't want to create a, quote, another Weldona, right? I don't want to.
So shouldn't we solve that problem?
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's and I think what Sandy's saying is, let's be deliberate about this, and let's overlay the plans we saw with the Toll Brothers and make sure this connectivity works, because we've got a deal in the works that, they're going to move the detention pond, and how does this impact Track H? This is not a large amount of space, but without Toll Brothers and Ranch Capital, you guys don't own this, right? So if Ranch Capital says, no, I'm not going to connect this into my development, I don't know what that means for us. I think that would be a perfect example of an unintended consequence of, well, wait a minute, we built this road to nowhere. I don't want a road to nowhere, and so I think we just need to be deliberate. I'm eager to hear public comment. I'm eager to think about it. We're not in any rush. And by the way, you guys are great. You've been a good neighbor. I live near you in your comment development. You've been a great neighbor over the last 5 or 6 years, much improved over the last developer. I think your product is great, and thank you for coming to our town. And for other developers that might be watching this, thinking about what works, what doesn't work for the town, your attitude of flexibility, hey, we're here to partner with the town, we've held community meetings, it's really fantastic. So
Well, thanks for saying
you
so.
that.
And if I might interject, we have talked to Toll Brothers and Ranch Capital about this, obviously, and Jim, representative of Ranch Capital, can correct me if I'm wrong, but they can accommodate one connection, either one, fairly easily. It's just shifting stuff. The two connections is challenging. It will
Right.
impact their development in a couple different ways. But from what I understand, whether Promenade goes through or Coal Creek goes through, they can accommodate that either way, and you can kind of see on their plan, if you look at it, you can kind of imagine how it could tie in either way, so.
Right. And so just for, you don't, an okay answer is, I can't answer that, let me come back in a couple weeks, but, you know, here, we would propose this eliminates 30 feet of road that you'd be building, yet we're asking here, to build, thousands of feet of road.
Well, we're not contemplating building Promenade, so that hasn't been proposed. And
So that's my question.
Yeah.
Would you, as an alternative for the proposal, so if we take this off, can you take on Promenade, or would that be a town responsibility?
It would be cost prohibitive for us to take on the entire Promenade. That's not to say that we couldn't allocate some funds if we didn't have to build Coal Creek here, and if there's some infrastructure that we had, already
All right, so this is an important discussion then, because we're
Mhm.
not talking about an equal, an either-or option as if there's no impact to the town. So I
Right.
think that's the other thing that we need to hear from staff. If direction from the board is, let's cap Coal Creek, but think about Promenade, and Alex and staff need to come back and say, well, that's, X millions of dollars. That's something that the board would need to consider, because if it's gonna make them a number, if it's 100 million and it's not, then I don't think you'd get much support from the board for connecting Coal Creek. We could hand out $100 bills for the inconvenience to, to those there. I'm being sarcastic, but you know what I'm saying. I think we need to think about the cost of Promenade. So just to be clear, you would not take any responsibility? It would
No,
be
for our,
prohibitive
that's
for you.
basically a complete, that'd be about 1,200 foot of road for our homes, and no, that has not been contemplated to date. That would probably be well over $1 million, I'm sure, to construct that road, just given the length of it.
Matt, can you speak to kind of how that road could get built? Because I think that is of interest to.
I think
several.
Mike's correct. Our estimates is that it would be about $1 million to construct that connection to 88th. We are doing improvements to 88th. That's the plan next year. So we could look at, if the board wanted to do this sooner than later, we could look at maybe incorporating that as part of that project as well, to capture some maybe better pricing for a larger project.
Are you talking Promenade?
Uh-huh. Yeah. We also, Kendra and I were just discussing the possibility of getting a portion of that maybe reimbursed through the bonds, through the Downtown Superior project. We have to look at that as a possibility as well.
But until anything's built, that road really goes to nowhere. I mean, we're talking about.
Right.
I don't know the rush to necessarily build it.
Well, I'm just giving
but
you options.
Yes, but I think it's important to understand how it does get built.
We also have to deal
And
with
paid
the
for it.
financial implications now, because that's all in the development agreement, so that's just something we'll have to, however we're going to do it, we're gonna have to at least put something in the development agreement that covers it, so.
Yes.
Kevin, can you clarify something? So you said several things here. One, you said you wouldn't want to see this cul-de-sac to open up.
That's correct.
And you said capping Coal Creek off. Then how would these residents get out? Down here?
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
we're
So
creating more of a
Mike-
problem, though, for Weldona, though.
So I'm not, we're thinking here, we're trying to be deliberate. I think Sandy's suggestion of being deliberate about this is good. So my assumption coming in this evening and looking at the stuff, and thank you for those that have sent emails and have been so engaged. So my previous thinking was, of course this would connect. I want to be considerate to those that live in this neighborhood and not have an adverse impact. So now here's this great idea of we could have our cake and eat it too, maybe, because I was not interested in ruining a cul-de-sac and creating another cut-through neighborhood. But if you could create this road behind the cul-de-sac, I like that opportunity. I like that idea. I just don't necessarily want to pay for it. But
And how would they get to that road?
how would who get to the road?
They wouldn't get to it.
They wouldn't
They
get to
wouldn't.
this road. The people in this Lanterns neighborhood would still have to come out. And yes, there is, I'm sorry, how many homes are there? 52?
62.
62. Of the 62 homes, and somebody estimated in an email today, let's assume that's another 120 cars per day. And, maybe half are going to go, what is this, east or whatever the direction, through Weldona, and the other half might go down to Rock Creek. So yes, there may be some impact to Weldona.
Yeah.
But it's a whole heck of a, I don't know what else. Opening the other, the other alternative is to open up this, but this isn't going to be built for years. Not everybody in this neighborhood is going to is going to depart through downtown Superior. So the people that live here have to get out somehow.
Yes.
So the hope would be they come, straight down Coal Creek to Rock Creek.
So if this neighborhood doesn't exist, so nobody's already dependent on a cul-de-sac, why couldn't you just start this build it out where there's no cul-de-sac? It just connects here and goes out.
I
don't think you're creating another Weldona. You're actually relieving, because you're going to get some of these people here end up going out down here.
Right, but there will be other exits and entrances into downtown. This will be the second way to get to downtown Superior. And then you have everybody from downtown Superior who will also exit. Then those people in downtown will cut through this particular cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And if that cul-de-sac gets built to cut through, this road's never going to get built, right?
Yes, of course.
Right? But we should. There are easy ways to do this. There are easy solutions, and then there are smart ways to do this and hard choices to make. And you got to think about the community that we're making here, right? We have a community here with a cul-de-sac. I mean, this will be a lovely community to live in, a lovely community to go, in the open space areas and over to the reservoir or on the Zaharias property. I mean, we should be doing what we can to foster more community, not cut-throughs. And by cutting this out over to 88th, we're just creating another Weldona. We're creating another problem. We should be looking at solving those problems before creating more of them.
Okay, I'd like to hear from our residents that came to speak to us tonight. So we've got roughly 30 or so minutes before we'd like to kind of wrap up. So we'll get to as many of you as you can, and then we'll continue on from there. So, Ken?
Good evening, Ken Lish, 1326 South Idalia Court, and a candidate for trustee. First, I'd like to thank all my neighbors who are passionate enough to actually show up at about 9:45 on a Monday night to be here. I'd almost say I'm disappointed because I had all these great points lined up and you guys kind of nailed it and are already ready to address the transportation plan. So thank you very much. I also appreciate all the effort you guys have done, not only the board, but the Transportation Safety Committee, in actually advocating for the speed bumps and helping fix our problems along the way. I don't know how many of you have actually gone back and watched the Planning Commission video, but one thing that was brought up and stressed throughout was there's really two options to address the traffic issues. It's either open up everything and make it as much as a arterial throughout the entire area. That way not one area is getting stressed, or let's close as much as possible and only force down the intended arteries. So I say we have two options. We have the option that Mark has proposed, where we close down Weldona, we close down the top, and we actually force people to go down Coal Creek. The other option is let's get rid of our cul-de-sac, let's actually build Promenade, and let's connect all the way up to Coal Creek. Let's give people as many exits out as possible, not send them down Weldona. I don't think we have an option here of having a cul-de-sac here and not connecting up at the top. I mean, I hear the argument that, well, maybe 120 cars a day, 60 of them only go down Weldona. Well, Weldona already has problems. Why do we want to exacerbate these existing problems? That's not a solution here. So I urge that whatever decision is made, we can't, at the get-go, allow any of it to impact Weldona negatively. Let's not say, let's leave it as is and we'll connect Promenade in the future. If we're not going to make Promenade right away but have a connection, let's get the cul-de-sac out of there and actually build a connection to 88th. Let's address it up front and not have negative impacts on all the residents in this area. Second, as we look at the actual plan, and there's probably a colored version, this a little bit better here. We can see that there isn't a lot of actual green space for people to go out and use with their grandkids. This is supposed to be a community that's intended for 55 years and up. We know that this is a region of Rock Creek that doesn't have a playground. We know that's needed. If we look at our code when addressing rezoning, section 16-7-30, section B, requires that the town consider whether the proposed rezoning furthers the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan states that this area, in addition to being used for both residential and non-residential uses, could also be used for community-oriented options. We need a playground in this area. If we're going to not have an additional Coal Creek connection here, we have a lot more room to add a playground. So I'd hope that that's something we can consider going forward. And then finally, getting back to the actual design of the development, I have very real concerns about the property designs that include a shared driveway between the structures. I mean, while we all hope that we're best friends with our neighbors, we know that life doesn't always work out that way. This is a future problem. Why don't we just address it now and not have shared driveways? That seems like low-hanging fruit to me. And then to step away and put on my my OSAC hat, Matt, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I went through all of these documents that were posted on the website very carefully, and both ProStack and OSAC had this development presented to us, and I never found our recommendations in any of the documents that were put out to the public, or as far as I know, to the board. Am I wrong in that? Did you guys see our recommendations to you? So, they
would have been captured in your meeting notes, but if they didn't get included in the cover memo, that was oversight on staff.
Yeah, and my biggest concern is, I mean, we're trying to recruit people to our committees as much as possible. What does that send to people that want to recruit if we're not even including what we say into the board for them to consider? So I hope we can correct that going forward. But since you guys didn't necessarily have the opportunity to look at what our OSAC and ProStack comments were to you, I'll go ahead and read it to you. For OSAC, we recommended that the undeveloped land, so this tiny little sliver on the west side of the property, should be preserved as a wildlife corridor. Fencing should be added to the cul-de-sac to dissuade the creation of social trails, and the space should be widened as much as possible to encourage wildlife activity. We know that we have Tract H, which is acting as a wildlife corridor already. We know the wildlife are active in this area. We might as well plan now for the eventual wildlife corridor that will exist on its own. So rather than going through the community, let's actually establish it from the start. And then finally, we had comments to include as much connectivity with the trails as possible, and to consider a diversity of trails with the bottom trail on the south side. Consider leaving that as dirt. ProStack's recommendation was that the entire social trail be paved on the lower south side, that the northeast trail along US 36 be paved concrete for future connection, and that a playground / tot lot be added to the area. So again, a recommendation directly from ProStack. Thank you very much. I appreciate the consideration.
Matt, ask you a quick question. So that brings me back to where we first started the work session. The first question I had was about the detention pond, where they had it, and I think that it was basically right here. Originally, that was Park 5. Couldn't that be a park that could be accessible by this group? And that's where I was going with that question: is couldn't we go ahead and make that a park and move the detention pond somewhere else? Do we have to have that detention pond there?
Detention pond is needed.
Does it have to be right in that spot, though?
No, I mean, what you saw in the work session, they had moved it to that location, so it can be moved around.
Mhm.
But they do need a detention.
Well, was Rita correct? I think she was, that they actually co-opted our land for the detention pond.
Yeah.
That's not too cool, is it? I mean, how does staff respond to that when, I mean, land is valuable and it just happened to move onto town land? So was that with staff's blessing, or how did that happen?
That, it was the concept that they proposed.
Okay, well, I
But-
think Chris
okay,
has a
let's-
I
good
think
point.
that I'd like to have that noted, that, you know, that's something that should be considered, because I agree with Ken on that, that it would, especially if this is going to be a senior, more of a senior community, that there's a nice place for them to take their grandkids and so forth. But originally that was supposed to be a park too, so it'd be nice that we could reconsider that.
It was Park 5, but
Yeah.
during the discussions, it was removed because it was known not to be a very good spot
Right
to
along the
put
highway,
any,
yeah.
because it was right kind of in the corner there,
Yep.
behind the Carlson Pond and up against 36. So, you know, we talked about, are you serious? Do you really want to send your teenagers up there to play basketball at 9 o'clock at night on a
But
Sunday?
we looked at it
Yeah.
in isolation, looking at it now.
Yeah,
Let-
right.
Let's
Just,
get back.
it was taken out, though, as a park, yeah.
I'd like to
Okay.
add it back.
All right, back to public comment. Who's next? Yes, sir.
I waited a long time to say this. Rick Hagerbarmer, we live on Amherst Street, the street here. I just want to make sure that that cul-de-sac does not get opened up through traffic. We have to go out and down and, you know, onto Rock Creek and roundabout to go to Louisville, which I do all the time. So I don't think these people are going to suffer much having to do the same thing. And just on Amherst, people around that corner around 30 miles an hour, and by the time they hit our house, which is maybe 4 or 5 down, they're going 60 miles an hour. I mean, and that's just to this end of the cul-de-sac. They're flying. So please don't open that up.
We were thinking of a 7-Eleven, actually.
Okay, thanks.
Just a few quick things about the roads.
Hey,
Again,
Sarah, do
thinking-
you mind starting with your name? And
I'm sorry,
Thank
Sarah
you.
Owens,
Thanks.
1259 South Waldona. A few quick things about the roads. Again, looking at the big picture, looking at not just a small area, but looking larger. Only one thing that I want to show is on this map. I think I'm going to have to point to this map to show that actually you do not, people keep saying you have to cut through Weldona. You actually do not. Here is 88th, and here's Weldona. People like to cut through Weldona, okay? But actually, these are the roads that you should be cutting through. These are the roads that there's no house with an address on these roads. These were meant to be cut-through roads, not Weldona. You can make Weldona a cul-de-sac at the end and still easily get to it. It is still easily accessible to Weldona and the streets off of it as it is. So blocking off Weldona, which is going to have to be done anyway when Zaharias is developed. It's not my first choice, but I think it's the only choice. Second of all, talk about truncating Coal Creek. Coal Creek, again, is here. It is not a small road, and it already accesses quite a few neighborhoods. It's not as though it's useless unless it moves on through here. It does serve this entire neighborhood. So as it is, it still has quite a bit of purpose. The third point and last point is about Coal Creek here. If it does extend through Lanterns Lane, this part of the neighborhood gets cut off from that part of the neighborhood. Lanterns Lane then becomes this part, and then it has this traffic area through here that goes into that's going to have considerably more traffic. This is going to be a whole different little neighborhood. It will not flow anymore. It makes sense in a lot of ways to cut off Coal Creek at the back of Lanterns Lane.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Jim Dood here, 1375 Stoneham Street. That's right here. Yeah, I don't mind the project itself, having those houses there, and it is the traffic issue. As it is, I do take Waldona, I'm not a heavy user of Waldona, to go north on 88th. If I'm going south on 88th, I don't take that. I obviously go along Coal Creek Drive. So I would take, and I think a lot of the people in here would take Waldona to go north on 88th, to get to Dillon, for example. So having this connection up here would be good, an alternative, and through Promenade, to get you to north on 88th. So that's where, if you don't have that connection here, everyone here is going to be going through this way, even to get to the new town center. So, like I would, if I was going to go to the town center from here, I would take Waldona. So that's not something you want to increase. You'll be increasing traffic, and that's from this whole area. This side of Rock Creek, who would find Waldona is the best way to get to the town center if this is closed. So I would support having this part open and somehow connecting to Promenade. So that would be my view.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Neil Anderson. I live at 1166 Amherst Way, which is the cul-de-sac at the end of Amherst. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. There was just a comment to get you a pointer. Is there an extra?
Here you go. Here's one.
All right.
That way we can hear comments better if people stay at
Fair
the
enough.
microphone.
Neil
Thank you.
Anderson, 1166 Amherst Way. That's that house actually right there. I am now a resident as of 1 year. About a year ago now, moved into that location. And I am glad I came tonight, simply because I thought we were talking about this, but I just then learned about the 300 and some odd development at the top. And if eventually Coal Creek would go through, and if I would have known that as a new home purchaser, I would not have purchased that home. And I would not have purchased that home because not only 124-ish more cars here, but add 300 and some odd, at least double that. That's another 600. That's 700 potential cars that are going to be coming, and people are by habit going the easiest way. You have apps, maps, Waze that will show that. The easiest way, if you're up here, to get to 88th would be coming down Coal Creek, either through that roundabout or through Waudananda. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Waudananda? Wildona, thank you, to get to 88th, because that's the only mechanism to get to 88th, to get to Monarch High School, to get to Monarch K8, to get to Dillon Road. Therefore, that becomes a major safety problem, because if I have 3 children, I know my children have friends at various other houses just on this, and I see kids all the time. If you have that many cars coming down here twice a day, there's no safe crossing mechanism for not only the high school students, but also the middle school students, plus the elementary school students, plus us pedestrians. So I'm full proposal in support of Mark's plan, where this gets cut off. And we talk often about access, and I'm fully about access, and I'm fully acknowledging that development is a necessary means, and I'm fully supportive of smart development. But access doesn't have to be vehicle access. Access can be in various different forms, and moving from a state that prides itself on biker, pedestrian friendly, I know my family would be happy to ride our bikes down to downtown Superior to enjoy what I believe is going to be downtown Superior. That is the shops, the music scene, the sports stable, and everything else that's coming into that space. It doesn't have to be via a vehicle. I also am supportive of a park, because right now, any child that wants to go to a park either goes across this walkway or has to come out. Either way, you have to cross a major road of Rock Creek. And so by creating a park that's accessible to not only the potential clientele that will be here with grandkids, but also the family orientation that's here, you create a livable community. And I've heard many times throughout this evening, and this is the first community I've been to, that you talked about livability, long-term viability of the town of Superior. That is created not by creating density, and I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek because I also believe in density and the power that density can provide to create affordability and infrastructure and supports, but it's not necessarily safe when it comes to what livability is like. And I want livability. I'm a realist. My wife is a realist, and my family is a realist when it comes to the future here, but let's be smart about it. And that's my thing. And that's why I'm supportive of Mark's plan in its entirety, because living here, I'll be fully admitting my first moves because of where I work, I went through that cut through to 88th. Well, I had a great neighbor of mine that said, don't do that. Just go down and go around the roundabout. Guarantee it's just as fast, if not maybe a minute slower. Timed it, yes. 45 seconds slower. And it's much easier though for me because I don't have to go through 2 stop signs, all the speed bumps. And so I was like, that's an easy drive. So I just do that. And so I'm fully supportive of closing that off, making this one of those little boulevards for electric cars, bikes, pedestrians to tie into this, connect all of this, keep that as a cul-de-sac and have that promenade if we need to have another way for viability of downtown Superior. And I think that makes a whole lot of sense for me for all the aspects that I think town of Superior prides itself in, and that it speaks about the award-winning, one of the best places to live in Colorado, all the reasons why we live here. And I think that would make it stronger. I think it would also help the property values of this development, and I think it would help the property values of everybody that lives in this area as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, Burton McKenzie, 1514 East Wilderness Way. Y'all probably saw my emails. So first I want to say thank you. The first comments that a bunch of you had were exactly what a bunch of us were thinking. So my biggest thing, I'm not going to repeat emails. I know it's not what I'm supposed to do, so I won't. But I'm fully supportive of both the promenade as well as a combination with closing down Wildona. I think the biggest issue I think that you're going to have is timing of this, and I'm fully supportive of the project. I think you should approve it, but the issue is obviously the connectivity and the timing of promenade. It might be they're under contract, the applicant. I totally understand that. I've been in commercial real estate and commercial banking for 20 years now. The timing, it's all about timing on promenade. So if that's not built, if that's not done now in conjunction with the approval of this project, then we might end up with another Amherst problem because with East Wildona, because if this project goes forward now without promenade, then and Wildona is not closed off, the obvious is going to occur. I think since today's issues, and even before I got here 3.5 years ago, the Wildona is an issue today that can be fixed really easily, and I appreciate Mark's support even 2 years ago when that was being discussed, just to close it off on the east side. So that can be done today, easily, and I think you got to make a choice between convenience for the masses, which is what was pretty obvious when the town went out with a survey, included all of the neighborhoods 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half, I don't know. But everyone didn't want, everyone outside who wasn't affected, even within our, the cul-de-sacs, the ones who aren't affected didn't want to close because that would be an inconvenience. I think it's more of a safety issue now, and it has been actually, and that needs to be addressed, and it should be addressed now. That way, that problem will be fixed at least, and it'd be immediate, and then we can have a lot less pressure on what happens with promenade, however we can pronounce it. So That's how I see it. So convenience for the masses versus safety for the minority, which is obviously Waldona. So, one thing I would point I was going to make was one of the issues that were brought up that was not supportive of closing off Waldona was access to the hospital down one of the cul-de-sacs. Well, one of the cul-de-sacs that actually has a bike path right at the stoplight, which is Boyero Court. I don't know if that's one question I would love to hear from if that's even possible to make that an emergency access, just like all the other cul-de-sacs have now, as well as are being proposed. Can Boyero have an emergency access directly to 88th to alleviate any kind of emergency access points that have historically been made? That's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. And then you're next.
Dulcie Brown, 1404 East Waldona Way. I've lived on Waldona for 25 years. I've been complaining about Waldona Way's traffic since the week that I moved in. Oh no, it's just construction traffic. It'll get better. It has never gotten better. Everybody, Mark is the only one that I've heard that wants to actually fix it, do something about it, and don't do a Band-Aid. Band-Aids are speed bumps, are 30 traffic signs on a one-block street, I'm trying to think what else you guys have done. Anyway, none of them work, not effective. Do something about the traffic. Every single one of you said, we don't want to continue the problem. We don't want to exacerbate, have another problem just like Waldona. You've all admitted it's a problem. Do something about Waldona and then concentrate on the other stuff. Sandbag it tomorrow. Throw sandbags out. Throw concertina wire. I don't care, but do something about Waldona, please.
Yes, sir.
Hi everyone, this is Han Fugle from 1474 Waldona Way. And thank you very much for a very good discussion, and thank you very much, particularly Mark, for the supporting of the safety in the Waldona Way. So I just, I don't want to repeat a lot of things that all of my very good neighbors already mentioned, but I think it's also good to repeat some of the very important points. That if you think that Waldona is the cutway that normally people don't choose, it's clearly already proved wrong from some of our neighbors here, and thank you very much to be very honest, and it's true. So I look on here, this is a Google map saying, if you follow Google map, you actually don't take Waldona Way. It is an alternative solution, okay? But people are smarter than the Google map, so they do. So I want to remind people that when we think of a short way, actually calculating the speed, it may be the same, or maybe a few seconds faster. But because we go there, and I live right at the intersection on Waldona at the stop sign, my neighbor Judy, actually often when she stays outside of the house, she often look right into the face of the driver going toward the stop sign. And you know what she does? She does like this, to make sure that that guy stops, okay? So I just want to remind you that the stop sign may not work as you think. So some people here describe that as the cul-de-sac. Actually, people speeding up to 60 is true. It's not a joke. And I live right at that intersection, so I really want to emphasize that it is important to actually block some ways, somehow block one way, this side, the other side, or in the middle of Waldona, like some very good suggestion here, in order to keep Waldona not the cut-through, the smart cut-through that people take, please. And it is supposed to be, as Mark said, that people should go to the big streets. And then the distribution is there, not the small street as Waldona. I'd like to finish with that, and thank you very much. And I really want to appreciate all the neighbors who actually comment on blocking the cut through the Lanterns Lane, even they are not affected. Because we are from Waldona, we already experienced that. We don't want the new neighbors to experience the same thing. And I think we should really appreciate that idea coming from the people who already experienced one of the worst here. Please, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Neil Shaw, 1321 South Idalia Court. I'm actually on the corner of Idalia and Wildona, and I'm not going to rehash everything we've been saying about Wildona since it's late, and I would just do the same exact thing. But what I do want to say is I appreciate the town thinking a lot about the bigger picture here, because to me, all the documents, everything I'd seen, it looked like a Lego block bolted on without a lot of concepts of what is going to happen to the rest of the traffic or the rest of the parks. All the conversation I've heard from everyone today, I think there's a broader consensus that, hey, there's no parks north of Rock Creek. What are we going to do about that? What are the different access points? One of the neighbors here pointing out, if you do run Coal Creek straight through, it's going to bisect Lanterns Lane. Those kinds of things aren't contemplated in the plan. I really look forward to the town coming to think about how all of these things are going to affect the bigger aggregate. And the last thing I'll leave with is Coal Creek Drive is a race course. Most people don't even realize it. The speed limit on it's 35 miles per hour. Right when you come off Rock Creek, you're going 35, and then you hit something higher than that by the time you get to Wildona or Amherst. The crossing for the kids trying to walk to school is a zoo. Definitely please think about something there, elevating the sidewalk, a flashing light or something. Every one of us who lives to the east of Coal Creek has almost been run over at least once. It's hard to try to take a picture of someone's license plate because they're gone. But please try to think about the bigger picture of increased traffic and what that's going to do to the aggregate. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Yes, Laura.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura Skwadzinski. I do not live in this area. I'm up on Castle Peak, but wanted to present a comment just around the design that we looked at earlier, so something a little different. I know Ken had mentioned earlier the comments about the parks and playgrounds, and I would certainly echo that, but I also have some concerns about the density of what's proposed. In the proposal, it specifically said, due to utility and driveway conflicts, the required number of right-of-way trees cannot be provided along Lanterns and Coal Creek roadways. So I wanted to check with, first of all, the developer. The site plan shows trees in front of every unit and all along Coal Creek. I wasn't sure if those designs were accurate or inaccurate, because I want to make sure that whatever picture we're getting is what we're actually going to get and not just based on other designs. Is that something that can be answered now or you would take under consideration?
We'll certainly circle back with that
Okay.
question, so thank
Okay.
you for raising
And
that.
then with regard to the traffic discussion, I think one important thing to consider is that it is personal preference whether or not roadways are open. We've heard from a lot of residents about the safety, and I think that's the most important thing for sure. But at the same time, there are people who prefer to have personal access, so it's faster to get to Louisville or wherever they may want to go. I'm not trying to argue that we open things up just for those people, but I would urge the board to try to make a final decision before the development is built so that whoever buys these properties on Lanterns can decide ahead of time whether they're comfortable living somewhere that is either open or closed, rather than a bait and switch that comes later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Okay. We are going to continue our public hearing to the next meeting, to the next board meeting, and we've got a date certain on that, which is...
We'll need just a motion to continue the public
Need a motion to continue.
Yeah, the next regular meeting is August 13th. And
Okay.
then we have the two special meetings, but those were planned primarily for the community center discussion, so.
Okay.
But those are your options.
All right. Is
A motion to continue this public hearing until August 13th.
Yep, second.
Okay. Motion by trustee Lacy, second by trustee Hanson. Any discussion? Rita?
I just would ask a question if that fits with the timing of the applicant, if that's okay, I'm just kind of seeing it, it's all right, so then I
Okay.
think that's the only discussion I'd ask.
And Matt, my question, that gives you guys a little bit of time to confirm that $1 million estimate and maybe a little negotiation with the applicant around some cost offset there?
Yes.
Good.
Correct.
And I think also it'd be good to incorporate as many of the comments, and I'm sure you'll be doing that between now and the next time, considerations for playgrounds, consideration for all this traffic flow and other things. So we appreciate the flexibility and do appreciate all the residents coming out, appreciate the emails and the engagement. And And I hope you hear that we're all committed to hearing you and doing what's best for the town. Yeah.
Could staff put together a graphic that overlays the Toll Brothers proposal onto this and any other information we know so we can get this broad visual?
With the connection to Promenade?
Right,
Yes.
just
We'll
how,
work with
how
Jim and
this, we're now putting all the pieces in this puzzle. Let's see them all on the
Yeah,
same.
I mean, like has been stated, they've been more than flexible to give us whatever options the board decides is best for the community. It's just the board, you're in that position where you got to make that decision.
Right.
I want to thank them for giving us those options, so we can do what the board decides to do.
Can we also get some information while you're getting the pricing on the road as to how much a traffic signal at Coal Creek and Rock Creek Barkeye would cost?
Okay. Circling back to our motion, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of continuing the meeting? All right, passes unanimous. All right, we have continued the public hearing and nothing further. We'll adjourn. Thank you.